Welcome. So this is a comprehensive guide for how to build native iOS apps. And this is for you if you've never built any apps or even if you have some experience. So we'll see how we can build them with AI tools. Actually, it's not me who has built an app and that will be teaching you, but my colleague, Tom.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be
Tom,
here.
what did you build? Tell us.
Well, I built an app that tracks your symptoms and triggers if you're a migraine sufferer, and which I am. I'm going to go into a bit more detail about where the idea came from, give you a demo of the app, but it's in the App Store. I have people paying for it. Not that many. That's the next phase, but have something in the App Store that I'm pleased with that has users. So today's going to be the story of how I got there.
Great. I think this is the hardest part mentally, right? It's like go from 0 to 1 and having even paying customers. So I'm really curious how you did it. So yeah, what are we going to cover?
So today we are going to cover the end-to-end process with a focus on the kind of build step. There are certain parts, certain technical areas where I'm going to send you off to really good resources. But I'll let you know where you need to do a bit of your own research, some great places to get resources on some more of the technical details of getting set up. But we are going to go from idea to App Store. And it's going to be a few hours, but it's going to be worth it. Stick with us. A few reasons why this might be relevant to you. So if you've worked alongside an engineer before, front-end developer, back-end developer, iOS developer, you will understand that structure is important when you're deciding what to build, particularly if you want to build something that's going to be released to real users, that has a kind of commercial purpose that you want to monetize. It's not absolutely the rule. You can absolutely ship stuff that isn't well structured or well thought out. But if you do, your chances of success, your chances of having something stable that reviews well, and most importantly, gets approved by Apple, is that little bit higher. That's the big one, and we're going to get into that. So many people come into the world of like vibe coding and vibe designing thinking, you know, I want to create an app. So many of us have got an app idea in us, right? And Alan and I, you have spoken before. We're ideas people, we're makers. We've got all kinds of ideas for apps. And then you start looking at like how to vibe code an app. And native apps are a bit more complicated. And a lot of people end up going back to vibe coding tools like Lovable to try and build a native app. And we'll get into the reasons why you might choose something like Lovable and why you might decide to do something a bit more structured, like what I'm going to show you today. But this is for people who want to build a native iOS app specifically. So when I say native, I mean using the native language of Apple's iOS apps, which is Swift. You don't need to learn how to code with Swift, but that is the coding language we are talking about when we talk about native apps. I'll get into a bit more of the differences between like a native app, web app, and an app that you've built using wrappers in a little bit.
I think what might be also interesting, Tom, is just a little bit about your story. Like, is this your first app that you built? And are you a developer yourself? Like also these kind of things. Obviously, I know the answers, but just for the...
Yeah, so I'm a designer first and foremost. So 20 years of experience, freelancer for the last 7 years. I have never released my own native app. I've been involved in the design and build of apps in the past in my career. I've never done any of the coding. I've never taken my own idea into the App Store, and I did this all completely solo. I have worked alongside developers before, working on apps. Most of my experience previously has been on web apps, so apps that are deployed on the internet that you log into online, not native apps that you download from an app store. So I've got less experience there. It's always been a bit of a blind spot for me, Alan, to be honest with you. It's like something I've wanted to do more of. It's, you know, areas that I've wanted to get more work in. So it's always been like an itch I've wanted to scratch. So yeah, I'm a designer. That's the bit I'm comfortable with. Early on in my career, I used to do front-end development stuff, so HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Those days are far behind me. Things moved on a lot, particularly when you had to get pretty proficient with JavaScript. That's when I was like, no, you know what? I'll stick to the design stuff. That, for me, is why agentic coding is so liberating for me now. because now it feels like all of those ideas that I've had, now I can build them, and I can build them confidently. That's really exciting. So if you're the kind of person like me that maybe is from a creative background, not a coder, and coding has always felt like a blocker to you for building something, the tools are there, right? And we're going to talk about which tools might be right for your idea. But today is all about, you want to ship something to the App Store, something someone can download and use that is robust, that gets through the approval process, which we'll get into, and really makes the most of what a phone can do. So access to the technologies on the phone. So things like cameras or databases on the phone or health data.
Sensors.
All that kind of stuff, sensors.
You got me excited. Yeah, I haven't built an app, so I'm taking this also as a course for myself. So I'll ask questions along the way.
Please
Hopefully
do.
Questions that maybe viewers also have. So excited.
Good stuff.
Get going.
I would love to see some people after this come back to us and say, I built my app. It's in the App Store.
That would be nice. Yeah.
That would be amazing. So the journey, what you're going to learn today. So I'm going to give you the kind of the overview of the steps that are involved in building this, and a bit more of that detail around why an iOS app is different to a website, and maybe why you should approach coding it and building it in a slightly different way, the way that I'm going to share with you today. Part two, this is the bulk of what we're going to learn today, is the workflow. So we're going to, I'm going to talk to you about how you get set up, like how you get your environments and your software in a place where you can start actively building something. But we're going to focus on that workflow. And actually, I think regardless of what you want to build, this workflow is really powerful if you want to build something consistent, structured, maintainable, secure, regardless of what you're building. I think these workflows apply if you're building an Android app or a web app. So yeah, I think you can take something away from this, even if you're not going to build something for iOS.
That's cool. So maybe I might also ask you, but you can also point out like what is specific to iOS and what is like general principles that apply to any kind of coding.
Will do. Yeah. If I forget, make sure you remind me. So there's a few bits to that. There's a couple of like really key files that keep everything in check. We've talked in past videos about the importance of markdown files. There's going to be a killer markdown file that is like central to everything today. We're going to watch a feature get built. So I'm going to take you through live building a new feature from Migrapulse for my app. May or may not be one that we ship. We'll see. Wouldn't it be amazing if we build an app feature today that ends up being in the app? We'll see. And then going to kind of show you how role-playing certain other roles in the development process is really powerful. And then finally, how to ship. So how to get it into the App Store, what to expect from the approval process, a few gotchas, like things to be mindful of, great things that the developers bring to the table that maybe are blind spots for us on the more creative design end of the spectrum. And then I've got like my manifesto for what I want you to take away of how to approach this kind of project.
Okay, that's cool. That's a good way to end. So basically we have 3 parts, right? We have your journey, then we have the how, the workflow, and the last part, which is how to actually go from you having built it to then actually make it live.
Absolutely. Yeah. Alan, please annotate as we go as well. I'd forgotten how good you are with the highlighter. You'll be saving me a job there. So I'm just very visual, and even when you talk, I was just trying to keep, watching what you're actually referring to. So I might do the same, but also feel free to obviously please sketch away. I've got quite a few tabs to manage today. So if you can do that.
Okay. Yeah, of course.
Okay, are we ready to get into it?
Yes.
Lovely stuff. Okay, so bit of the story of how Migrapulse got built. So little note, actually, version 2 of the app shipped on Sunday night. Absolutely delighted. So when I am going through the screens that we look at today, these are ones that are now live in the app. I was a little bit nervous because I've been working on a new version, knew we were recording, and I was like, I really hope it's in the App Store. It is, which is good. So this process started for me end of last year, November, December last year. So
2025, just
2025, yes. There's going to be things in here that on reflection, I might do differently. But I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to tell you exactly how I built it. I'm not going to pretend that I did it a way I didn't, because tools have updated. I'm going to show you how I did it. And as we go, I might mention, you know what, there's this new tool or this new process that I might do things differently. But this has worked for me. There's not a lot I would change here, but I might just adjust some of the tools. I'll make sure to call those out. And Alan, you're across a lot of the tools as well. Maybe like if you like Tom, you might want to check out this, or viewer, you might want to think about doing it this way. Please jump in. So the idea for this app came from the fact that I suffer from migraines. I've only been suffering from migraines for the last 18 months. They come on very suddenly. I suffer from something called vestibular migraine. So basically when my migraine kicks in, I get vertigo and dizziness. It's not a lot of fun. And one of the important things with migraines to try and avoid them or manage them is understanding your symptoms and understanding your triggers. And whenever you go and see a specialist or a medical professional, or just look online, one of the first pieces of advice you'll get is track what you eat, track your sleep, track your stress, track your symptoms. And there are a whole bunch of very good apps out there for doing that. However, one of the things you were encouraged to do is to track during an episode. So how are you feeling in the moment? Now, let me tell you, when the room is spinning and you are being sick and you can't focus properly because it makes my vision go really weird, the last thing I want to do is look at an app screen and start fiddling around boxes and checkboxes and sliders. That's okay, I guess, depending on what kind of migraine you have and how manageable that is. For me, that was impossible. So I was retrospectively trying to log things. So my thinking, and as someone like you, Alan, who actually dictates to AI quite a lot, I've got into that habit now of speaking to my computer a lot. I was like, actually, you know what? If I could just say these things out loud during an episode and it get recorded and it get tagged and analyzed, that would be amazing. So voice first, because screens hurt, right? Like looking at a screen in that scenario is painful. And also, gotta be honest with you, even if I'm not in the middle of a migraine, the last thing I feel like doing at the end of the day is opening up a load of forms and filling them in. And so I get really inconsistent with it as well. So I wanted this to be something where the friction was as light as possible.
That just makes a lot of sense. And I just feel like a lot of these things that we are supposed to do medically, like a doctor prescribes you something, it just so blatantly ignores the human nature, such as this one, right? Like, oh, you have to keep note of this, and then you have to open an app. Obviously, you could also, take a notepad and write, but who does that these days? So yeah, I mean, I like how this is also, showing the design perspective and the UX perspective and the user, solving for the user problem. Cool. Yeah. So voice first makes a lot of sense for this idea. I like it.
It does. And I think there's loads more scenarios where voice works as well.
There's a whole, I think, world of ideas where if you just switch from text to voice, you would need like a different flow, different app, different product, and you could build a much better experience. Yeah.
Totally. And because I use voice first with most of how I build with AI, and we'll talk about that today, I've started to understand the patterns and the flow and the user experience that I like when it comes to voice. So those two things, there was the confluence of different experiences there. And I was like, I've got to build this. Like, it was an itch I had to scratch. And at the time when the app went live, no one was doing this in the migraine space. I've got a couple of competitors now, Alan.
You do?
So I started the way many of us do when we have like an idea. And I was like, what is the best vibe coding platform for this? I'm not going to go into loads of detail on that part of the process, but I started off in Lovable. For the record, I think Lovable is a great tool, really great tool, particularly for like learning how to vibe code, learning how to how to talk with AI, how to brainstorm, how to do generative stuff. But for me, it didn't cut the mustard, and I will explain why as we get into the process. I did spend like a couple of months. I spent quite a bit of money in Lovable. It just did not give me the consistency I needed, particularly for an app that was going to be I needed to make sure the experience was very thoughtful, and I needed to know it was going to be very reliable when it came to data. And I just didn't have that reassurance from what I was building. Now, tools might have moved on since then. I've not touched Lovable for a few months now. This might age like milk. But at the time that I was building this, it just didn't feel like the right use case. It's fantastic for a lot of other use cases, which may be a subject for another video. I needed structure, because when I was prompting Lovable, the results that I get out it's very kind of, it's exciting and very dopamine enhancing, hitting to like get these results really quickly. Like you're talking to it and you're like, wow, it's working. And then it doesn't work. And you're like, oh no, undo, right, let's go again. And it feels like gambling a little bit. You're like playing the slots. And I just got too fed up of that. It wasn't predictable enough. So I needed structure, I needed predictability, I needed reliability. That was what I needed. And I didn't know whether it existed or not. And the only way I had the same
feeling with Lovable as well.
Yeah. I didn't know that a tool like that existed.
Me neither.
No, my thinking was, I'm going to need to learn to code if I want to do this. And I kept thinking, oh, maybe I should make a web app. But anyway, so I had this idea, started working with it, like I say, in Lovable. I think I played around with Replit for a little while, but just wasn't working for me. So I spent basically a lot of time researching. Okay, I've heard people talk about using Cursor, and I'm going to get into Cursor in a bit, to build native apps. And I found some amazing tutorials on actually how to use AI, so agentic coding, but in a way that a developer would structure and do their workflow, but where I don't need to write the code, I just need to manage the code and manage the build, manage the specifications. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, that sounds like a lot of work. It is a lot of work compared to just like hoping you'll get something out of Lovable in a couple of days. If you want to build something a bit like the app I'm describing and have it on the App Store within like a day or so, this is not the video for you. I still recommend you keep watching because I think you'll learn something. This has taken probably 2 months from starting building to having something live in the App Store. Not working constantly, but this is probably at least a couple of weeks of head down work.
That's so let's say 100 hours went into this?
Yeah, probably around then. Yeah.
So if there's nothing else you're doing and you don't have kids, you could do it in a week.
A week? Yeah. It was probably 100 hours.
Which is so much faster.
For the App Store. I don't know. I certainly maxed out my Cursor plan for the first month, and we'll get onto that in a bit. So
okay, you will get to it. Okay.
It's a fair bit of work. So,
but you will cover which Cursor plan you have and what it includes?
Yes, we will.
Okay.
Totally. I'm going to show you the stack that I've used.
Okay, perfect.
So this is kind of what my process ended up looking like. So instead of just like describing everything and kind of vibing, like truly vibing all of the features and hoping the right thing comes out, undoing, going again, that kind of stuff. It's like, no, structure. That's how we're going to do this. So had the idea, this voice-based migraine tracker, which I'm going to demo in a second, actually. Actually, let's do that first. I'm going to give a quick demo because I think that creates the context.
Yes, I think that would be great to see.
So this is it in the App Store. If you're a migraine sufferer, please download it, give it a whirl. Would love to get your feedback. Just search for Migrapulse. And I have my marketing site as well, which is another critical thing that you have to have if you have an app on the App Store. But I'm actually going to open up the simulator so that you can see it. So let's put a blank page behind there so it's a bit easier to see. So this is running a simulator, and I'm going to show you how to get the simulator working later. So this is how you test your app during build. So the first time someone downloads Migrapulse, it has a vibe to it, to use that word, which is supposed to be very calm, quite dark, because it's got to be easy to use when you're, not feeling your best. I'm not going to show you everything inside out. But this is the onboarding, so you get a bit of an idea of the main features, so we don't have to go too deep on that. So the important thing for me, and one of the reasons why I needed to have a native app, was one of the biggest problems with vibe coding is data security. So if you are managing people's data in the cloud, say using some sort of cloud-based database software, and you need people to log in, you need to manage database security, integrity, redundancy. You need to do authentication, and you need to do it pretty well. And if you're doing medical data like I am, your stuff better be secure and it better be reliable. I did not want to go there. And I wanted to have all the data that people are logging using my app to just be on their phone. So privacy, absolutely important. It was kind of like a bit of a forcing function. At first I was like, that's a bit of a limitation, but I've made it a feature. It's like, I don't send your data anywhere. I don't have access to it. I'm never going to sell it. It's on your phone. That's where it lives. And you don't need an account. Obviously you have your phone. That's kind of your account. You download, you don't have to sign up. You just start using it. So for me, that like makes the process of using the app really easy, really frictionless, but also I haven't got to worry about databases, authentication, any of that stuff.
Interesting. So you do have to pay to start using it right away. There's no freemium, or because
there is
have to log in?
There's a free version. Okay. So I genuinely wanted tracking to always be free. So you can download this, you can track for absolutely free. The bit that you pay for is the analysis stuff that I do. And again, that all happens on the app. So I'm using all of Apple's native on-device AI. I did not want to use a third party. I don't want to be sending any data up to the cloud. Again, from a privacy perspective, but also a cost perspective and tech complexity perspective. In future, when I build something else, I may well, like that might be the next level in my like knowledge journey. But for now, all of those things felt important with the context of this app, but actually made it simpler, but also meant that building a native app was the way to go. I could have built this as a web app, but I would have had to do all that authentication, databases, all of that kind of stuff.
Super interesting. You made it a feature.
The app obviously has a database, but it's on the phone.
Yeah. And I've seen moves from Apple showing that actually they're moving more and more into the direction where they will make their devices in a way where you actually can run a local AI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the whole point, right? That's why also Mac Minis are getting sold out and so on. So I think this app actually already plays on that, and it might just get stronger and stronger because of it. Meaning you don't have to be pushing, as you said, data through APIs, through clouds. Everything will happen on the phone. So in general, I think this will open up so many new apps that we can build. So this makes this whole category of iOS apps, I think, even bigger in the future.
I agree.
Did you see who the new CEO of Apple is?
I did, yes.
Yeah, it's a hardware guy. And that's why, they want to be building actually. They're really thinking about how Apple can own this like local AI, at least in my view, local AI hardware race.
Yeah. I think it's great. I think from a speed and performance perspective, but also from a reliability perspective. I know Apple is behind the curve at the moment, generally, as far as their AI. It considered to
on the models,
anyway, with the models, but I've no doubt they will get there. Even during the period of me building this app. So one of the things that's really important with this app, which I'll show, is voice transcription. And actually, when I first started building the app, I wasn't making the most of the on-device transcription AI. And so I was looking at third-party transcription services, the usual suspects in the AI space, and really wanted to avoid that for many reasons. Dug a bit deeper and actually realized I wasn't making use of the latest transcription stuff that is on device. I think it's as good as a lot of those third-party services, what I'm using. So again, transcription, all on device, never recorded. It's part of my onboarding because it's important in this context.
Let's see what else we have. Microphone access.
Yep, need access to your microphone. I have to ask for permission to do that. That's part of the that's part of the deal when you are doing stuff with the App Store. This was actually the copy that I had on this page originally. Was one of the reasons I got rejected. It was a really minor thing around how you label calls to action. I can't actually remember. I can probably pull it up. But it was one of the reasons that I got rejected first time around. So Apple are on it. If you want to use like native controls and stuff that is deemed kind of a security risk, you have to make promises you can keep, basically. So another reason to be a bit more methodical in how you approach anything with Apple, I would say. And I respect it, like I do. It's frustrating to get stuff out there. Same with speech to text. So I'm doing on-device transcription using Apple's models. And again, I have to get permission to do that. I'm not seeing the permission overlays that you'd see the native Apple ones, because I've already given permissions to this, but that is what you would say. And again, you can customize that message, and that's one of the messages that Apple will give you feedback on. It has to be really accurate. I then ask a couple of questions around what people are looking for from the app. This dictates whether they will see my upsell screen during onboarding for analysis. If they just want to keep a journal, then I won't show them that. Like, that's fine. But if they want to like track their triggers and understand patterns, I do say to them, look, have a free trial of this thing, but they don't have to do that. My app customizes the questions that you get asked during logging, depending on what kind of migraine you have. This is for me, one of the downsides of a lot of other migraine apps is they don't account for people who've, they don't cater well for people with vestibular migraine, like myself. We're a small subset of migraine sufferers, but you very rarely get questions about dizziness, vertigo that go into detail. So I wanted to make sure that people could choose the kind of symptoms they get and make sure that the login was then customized for them. When I was first logging with other apps, it was asking me loads of really irrelevant questions. I don't get a headache. It's like, and most, like 90% of the questions are about headaches, because that's the kind of typical migraine. And actually I had feedback from someone, this latest version has this. The first version of the app just asked you what type of migraine you had, visual aura, vestibular, or like traditional headache. And it's not neat. Some people have like really overlapping symptoms. So this is something I've put into this latest version of the app, where it doesn't try and pigeonhole you too early. And this again is something that Apple insisted that I had, was, you know, they're rightfully very particular about apps that offer medical advice. And this is not anything the app does. I don't tell people about treatment plans or like any of that stuff. It's really just, here's your patterns. You do with it as you would take it to a medical professional. I had to put health information sources to back up why this is important as well. This is another thing that Apple insisted I have in the app. This is the upsell for Migrapulse Pro, which is the like analysis stuff. So understand, like, rather than you having to interpret all your logs, it will help interpret them for you. And I have a trial for that. I'm going to skip that for now. And then we're into the app. And the difference here is, like, you can tap anywhere on this orb and it will start the voice logging. We'll have a quick look at that in a moment. I've already got some data in here. So I've got my entries. So I can log multiple entries for a migraine, which is something that isn't so elegantly done in other apps, I don't think, particularly also showing you like the journey that it went on. Did it start badly and get better, or did it start okay and get worse? And we can start to understand the shape of a migraine and what that means. So we have all our entries in here. If I was to buy Migrapulse Pro, I would start seeing like top triggers, times of day, clusters of frequency and things like that. So that's the stuff that was very time consuming to build, and the bit that I would like to recoup a little bit of my time on, but it's not essential, you know. As I want people to be able to log, that's really important, and they can do their own. There's some interpretation that happens within the entries, but for the, you know, the more detailed stuff.
But I have to tell you, Tom, this looks really good. I mean, it doesn't like look vibe coded, or it doesn't have that like usual vibe coded feel. It doesn't have that unpolished feel to it either. It just feels, it feels very proper.
Yeah, thank you. And that was one of the other things that meant I had to go down this route, because the results I was getting from those apps, you know, you can with enough prompting, enough work, start to shape it into something that doesn't have all those hallmarks of something vibe coded. But you can sniff them out. And actually, something I'll touch on later, I think even the non-developers, non-designers amongst us in the population are starting to not only recognize AI-generated video, they're starting to recognize vibe-coded apps. I've seen stuff on Facebook where people have launched apps, and like comments underneath are like, "Did you make this in like Lovable or something like that?" And it's non-techies. So it's not necessarily something wrong with that, but it definitely might make people think twice about whether they want to pay for something, I would say. So anyway, I have a couple of options for the premium. You can do annual or monthly as well. But most people who've bought it so far are doing the monthly.
What do you use for payments? Is it Stripe or
Apple's native payment stuff? So it's one of the beauties with Apple is it's all just managed straight through App Store Connect. So you don't have to set up any payment gateways. You just put in your bank details in App Store Connect, which I'll show you in a bit later. And there's a little bit of code that you put into your app for where you're going to display your pricing, and then your pricing is managed in like their online portal for your app, and you can change the price per like territory and things like that. You can do offers, you can do discount codes, all kinds of things.
And you get 70% of that, right? And
I get more than that because I am considered a small developer, and my income is below the threshold. I think I can't remember what it is. It might be like 100,000 a year or something, which I would love to get to. So I'm in the band where Apple don't take that much, actually.
Okay. So how much does it take for the small developers?
Let's have a quick look. Do you want to have a quick Google for me?
Yeah, I'll have a look and you keep going.
So full disclosure, I'm not making very much money at all off it at the moment. Today's video is not about marketing and distribution, but let me tell you, that's where an app lives or dies. Subject for another video. But I do have paying customers, and I've done zero marketing so far, so I'm quite encouraged by that. I do plan to double down on a bit of marketing at some point.
This video is partially marketing, so
yeah.
Let's see how it performs.
Who knows? I would love it to get a few people checking it out. I have
By
a
the way,
sales area.
The small business program, it's $1 million US.
Okay.
And if you're below $1 million, it's 15%. And if you're above that, it's 30%.
Okay, cool. So I'm definitely in the 15% band for now. I've got a whole load of settings in here. Not going to go through those. They're not that interesting. We've got entries, and then we've got the recording. So I'm going to quickly show you what voice logging looks like. So the questions that I'm asked are customized based off of my type of migraine. I'm actually not going to go through the full log. We'll cancel it partway through. But it works very much like a chat. About 2 hours ago. Yes, I'm a little bit lightheaded today. I feel a bit more off balance on my left side. Next. Yes, I'm avoiding screens today. Next.
Do you feel pressure in your head or ears?
No. We're gonna stop there and cancel the log. But basically we'll go through. Yeah.
So could you also do this like if you turn off your screen, or how do you usually use it so that you're not bothered by the screen?
So I've got it set up in settings that you can use Siri or set up the action button to do a log. So you can just hold the action button if you've got like I've got, I think iPhone 15 or maybe 14 was when the action button first came in. Or you can set up Siri and just say, I'm not going to, hey, start a migraine log, and it will open up the logging straight on the logging process.
That's neat.
So yeah, and it's very much like a chatbot. Transcribing live. At the end, it gives you a summary of the entry. And you might have noticed when I was first doing the entry, I was pressing the next button. I can just say next out loud, and it will go on to the next one. when you are first using the app, which I could actually very quickly show the start of, because I'm in dev mode. You can reset the first log experience. I do a bit of training, so it will say to you what happens first. Migrapulse asks you something, and then you have to listen for the chime, and that's when you can start speaking. This was one of those bits of the user experience that took a lot of time and a lot of refinement. Then you speak, say next when you're done, and a few tips. Try and speak clearly, try and be somewhere quiet, but you can always go back and add detail. Let's cancel the log. And I have audible prompts, obviously, because if I'm like lying on my bed feeling terrible, I need to hear what I need to feed back to it. You can type instead. So if you're feeling okay to type, like I can just type in here. That's an alternative as well. And a really important thing as well is when you're having days that are symptom-free, it's really good to log that, because then we can see like how long you've gone between migraines and stuff. So I can mark today as symptom-free, and that will go into my entries as today is symptom-free. I can delete that if I want to. Anyway, that's the demo of the app.
Looks amazing. So how did we build it?
How did we build it? Yes, let's get into it. Cool. So how we built it, and we're going to go into the detail of all of these. First thing we do is a real brain dump of the idea that we have. I believe in just giving as much context as you can to AI, like talking to it. Everything I do now is talking. Alan, you showed me the way quite a while ago with doing that. And then what we need to do is take that and structure it into a document that we can then use to build. And I'm going to show you what that document looks like. That is the breakthrough. That is the goldmine that makes this happen. Big shout out to Coding with Chris. He is the one that showed me the way. He's the one whose document we're going to look at today. So we will put a link to his stuff in the description. I'm going to show you his documents. But basically you have a template that then you populate with your idea. I'll get into that. It's basically like it has all your user stories, features, screens, data, all of that good stuff. Absolutely need that. And then once we're happy with that, we then go through this loop, which is design, build, and test. Not going to go any further on that now because we're going to get into that a bit later. There's a few other things that are happening. You have to, and I will get onto this, you have to have a marketing site if you want an app in the App Store. So you have to have that built, and I have that built. Then it is submitted to the App Store for review, and then you can go live, start having paying customers, start iterating. So
does it really take 3 weeks to get it reviewed?
Took me 3 weeks. I'm going to show you that.
Wow.
Probably got rejected, I think, 3 times. What Apple will do during the review process, they will get as far until something doesn't pass, and then you'll get rejected. So I submitted the first time. We'll get onto this in more detail. I was rejected within half an hour of it being picked up for review, and it was the onboarding. It was that bit about permission with the microphone. So then I have to go away, fix it, resubmit, and Apple are inundated now because of the amount of vibe coded apps there are. So I've waited 4 or 5 days to get re-reviewed. This is why it pays to like be detailed, like be structured and pay a bit more attention, because it can take a while to get approved.
And then, so after the review, it just goes live automatically, or
you choose when you submit to Apple for review, you have an option to go live automatically if it's approved, or at a set date, or you manually do it. I just always put it to go live once it's reviewed,
cool.
Which is what I did this week with the latest version.
Nice.
So we've already touched on kind of when vibe coding is the right thing to do. If you're building a small web tool, you could absolutely build something that needs a database. Just be aware of some of the security risks there. Be on it. If you're building a tool for teaching, which Alan, we've vibe coded some amazing games for our DMBA cohorts, right?
Yep.
I think there's loads and loads of cases where purely vibe coding without so much structure is the way to go. And I love it. It's so liberating. You can have something in like 20 minutes, half an hour that's absolutely good enough, and get some real quick wins. And that is very compelling. But for a native app like mine, where you've got novel complexity, there's people's health to think about, you want something consistent, it doesn't quite cut the mustard, in my opinion, right now, as of today. So the structured path, it is more work. We've already said this took me weeks to build, but it's absolutely worth it. And I think the headroom for like what you can get to quality-wise is higher, in my experience. So if we think about like effort in, quality out, I think with pure vibes, you can get to something quite quickly, like that's good. But then the kind of quality ceiling kind of flattens out. I think it's quite hard to then really elevate the quality of the design, the quality of the code, because you just haven't got so much control. But with the kind of structured build, it takes a lot longer to get going. Like, it might take you longer to get set up, to get comfortable and find your way. And you will still go up in small steps. But I think the ceiling for quality is so much higher by taking this approach. So it is slower. It's slower to start. It's steeper. But I think the ceiling is just so much higher. So yeah, the tools are moving fast though. There's nothing to say that in 6 months Lovable might not have something way more structured. There's talk that Apple in their Xcode environment are going to bring agentic coding tools as well, which will be amazing. It's not launched yet. But yeah, I learned this kind of the hard way by spending a lot of money and a lot of time, that the kind of thing I was trying to build couldn't be, not to the level I needed, built in a vibe coding app.
Yeah, I mean, like also my journey with Lovable was similar in the sense that I tried stuff and it just felt, just after a few back and forths, I just felt stuck, like in a mud, not being able to improve it. And it just felt like, oh, this thing is not working. And when I say this thing, I don't mean Lovable, but just mean like in general, like there's vibe coding. I don't know why there's hype around it. But then as soon as I switched from Lovable to agentic tools like Cloud Code, it just felt completely different. The whole thing just felt like, oh, I have so much more control over what I can do. And as you said, in future Lovable might be different, but in this stage, I think you can just do way, way more stuff, more controlled with the cursor or Cloud Code or Codex.
Yeah, and look, we're not
paid by anyone, right? To say
paid by
things.
anyone, but also like we're using Lovable as shorthand for all of those kinds of tools. So this isn't just Lovable. It's like there's a whole suite of things out there, Bolt and all kinds of things, and they absolutely have their place. So don't get me wrong. I still have a Lovable license. I've just reduced my plan a little bit. I will still use it when the time is right. I think it's an incredible product. I don't think it's the right product to build what I needed to build. So
yeah. I think I have two family members who are non-techies and they just build their own websites. They used to host them on Squarespace and that was like $150 to $200 a year. Now it's basically for free because in Lovable you get like 5 credits for free a day. So they just have been building the website for long enough to be able to build a website in Lovable and then just deploy it on Netlify, and it's for free. So yeah, there's a lot of use cases like that where it just makes a lot of sense.
And also like I've got to pay my dues. Like I wouldn't have got to realizing how I needed to build it if I'd not gone through that journey of learning how to vibe code with something like Lovable. I think it's those kind of tools are an incredible gateway to the possibilities. Also, I think what we need to say is that you can also vibe code within Cursor. So it's not to say that Lovable is just vibe coding and then what you're going to show us today is just the structured way. No, you can totally use Cloud Code, Cursor, Codex for vibe coding as well. So the structure comes more from your approach, how you use the tool, than from the tool itself. Yeah, it does. Yeah, you can totally. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I needed the structure because very specifically iOS, Apple, and all the reliability things I've talked about, and just how my brain works, Alan. Like,
yeah, there's a lot of that. How your brain works. For some people, I think you should just try it. So maybe just show us your stack. Yeah, and I think the learning here is not exactly like, oh, you need to use exactly this stack, where there are certain things you have to use, like Mac, if you want to build an iOS app.
Yeah.
But, well, not even that. But there are certain tools that you can swap and try something else. And AI is also really good at just suggesting other tools if this one doesn't work for you.
Totally.
But yeah, walk us through what you have.
Well, on a quick one, I just have to explain the why. You can absolutely build an app that you can deploy to iOS, not using what you would call like native iOS code. So you can build something in like something called React Native, as an example, which is more like web technologies that then you sort of put a wrapper around and submit to Apple. Like it will convert it in a way, I don't really understand the magic that happens, converting in a way where you can submit it to Apple. That's a way that some people will get around probably some of what I've done. I have built it what you will hear called like natively. So that means built using the language that Apple uses to build its apps, and what, in my opinion, the best apps are built in a way that uses native the native language, which is Swift and SwiftUI, because you get more consistency. It looks and feels more like it was built for the app, rather than like things like transitions and interactions and things like that feel much smoother if you've used native code. Don't get me wrong, I've seen some like wrapped apps that look incredible. Like you can get there. Also, if you want to make use of, like we said earlier, some of the stuff that's deep in the actual hardware, it's much easier if you're using native code. So I wanted to have access to lots of stuff on the device. I want to be able to add Apple Health data at some point. That's all going to be easier because I've built it natively. So yeah, there's a bunch of reasons. Like particularly if you want to access hardware, the building using native code is a good way to go. So yeah, few things to think about there, but those are the reasons why I chose to go native.
Maybe since we're on this topic, I'm just curious, now that you have the iOS app live, are you also thinking of adding Android? Because one reason why somebody might want to also launch an Android app, or just build it in a way where you can launch both on iOS and in the Google Store, is distribution, right? You have access to way more people. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, are you now thinking of doing an Android app, or no, because you were basically trying to solve your own problem and you just build it for yourself initially?
I would love to get something on Android. I don't think it's going to come anytime soon because I don't know that platform very well, in all honesty. It was easier to design for iOS and something that felt kind of native. Look, there's loads of reasons right now why I'm not going to. I may do at some point, but my comfort with this workflow and iOS, I'm going to keep building. And then once I have something that's maybe got good distribution, I might look to build something for Android.
Sounds good.
So the stack, this is going to look like a lot. And look, I'm going to say this a few times. Don't let this stop you. Like, I know how enticing it is to just go and start like telling something, build this. This is all worth it, in my opinion. So this is the stack you'll need before you start doing anything. You need a Mac. You can't get around it. If you want to build Mac apps, you need a Mac, because Xcode, which is Apple's proprietary development environment, only runs on Macs, and you need Xcode, their bit of software, which I'll quickly pop on screen now. You need this in order to publish to the App Store. There's no other way of doing it. You distribute through this app. So
is Xcode like VS Code?
It's their sort of their IDE. So it's their developer environment. I don't use it to do coding because it doesn't have the agentic stuff built in. There's rumors that it will do at some point soon.
Sure.
So I only use this for publishing the app. That's why it's open at the moment, so we'll be showing you that a little bit later. But you have to have it running. It's also required to simulate the app, although I've got a plugin running in Cursor that allows me to bypass that. But yeah, that's why this is why you need to have a Mac. Then you need what we've called already mentioned, which is what's known as an IDE, like a developer environment. I use Cursor, so Cursor looks like this. we've covered this in other videos. It's the kind of software that your developer would use, where they can see the structure of all their documents in their app. You can see your code view, and then you have like an agent view over here. So I like this because I like to keep abreast of everything that's happening in the background. I like to see the structure. I like to put things in folders to reference. That's much harder in an app that's kind of abstracting all of that for you and not allowing you to see all of that. So I work exclusively in here.
Yep. I mean, just to give people alternatives. So if you actually are using Claude Code, you could actually just use the Claude desktop app, because it has the Claude Code built in, and it has the preview, it has the agent built in. So Cursor is basically, alternative for either Claude Code or like Codex app.
Yeah,
right?
or Anti-Gravity or any of those.
Or Anti-Gravity, yes.
The reason I use Cursor is I can choose many different agents in here. So right now, Anthropic's Opus models are incredible for coding. So when I am coding, I will select the Opus model for 99% of what I do. But if that changed tomorrow and say Claude wasn't the thing, or their models weren't the ones, I've sort of got myself used to the Claude environment. Let me just say, if I was a betting person, I would say I think Anthropic are just like nailing it. I don't see that changing, but you never know. But I can move between different models here at the moment. I can add other models. So I've got a bit more flexibility with what model I use and when. So I like that. I can also get it to automatically choose the models that balance intelligence and efficiency. That's quite useful. Completely honest though, right now I have Opus turned on most of the time, so I could just work in Claude Code if I wanted to. And I just find, for me, it just feels good. It feels familiar. I've worked in these kind of things before. Your results may vary. Find the thing that works for you. But yeah, you can use any of those environments basically.
So just maybe the last thing on this, if you're not familiar with Cursor, Anti-Gravity, things like that, maybe just watch there's another video on the channel called Claude Code for Designers. And if you're not a designer, you can just watch the section where it talks about the IDEs, which is me showing you how to use another IDE, which is called Anti-Gravity. And we cover everything from how to install an extension in it, to use Claude Code or ChatGPT, how to pay for the subscription, and so on. Yeah. So having said that, let's move on to Apple developer license.
So we've covered Xcode, the Apple developer license. So if you want to ship anything, you need to give Apple $99 a year in order to do so. And they will do a few checks on you as part of that to check you're legit. So it's pretty negligible cost, but just be aware that get that done pretty early on.
Do you need to be an incorporated to do that, or can you just be a natural person?
Okay. I think you can just being an individual. I'll come on to that because we've got stuff at the bottom around company, but great question. You will need App Store Connect, which is an online, basically Apple's online portal where you manage your app. You manage your builds, so the versions that you are releasing. It's also where you can distribute the app to your testers using something called Test Flight. So before the app is ready to launch, you're going to want to test it with people that isn't just you. So you can distribute it to people before it's on the App Store using Test Flight. So I had I think I had 5 core people who were testing it all throughout the build. That's super helpful. And again, you need to make sure your App Store connects. You just log in with your Apple account once you're set up as a developer. You need, ideally, and this is kind of non-negotiable, you need somewhere to store your code safely. If it's all on your machine and something goes wrong with your machine, you are in a pickle. So you may have heard of something called GitHub, which is basically a cloud-based source control product, I guess you'd call it. So basically all your code is stored on your machine while you're working away. And every so often, and I'll talk about when might be a good idea, you push that code up to GitHub or whatever source control platform you're using. GitHub is probably, well, definitely the biggest, and it has good free tiers. Great for rollback, great for safety, great for the history, like seeing the history. Very often you might do a day of coding and be like, you know what, this feature's not working. Like, actually, I want to roll back. You might hear that to a previous version of the app. You can do that quite easily by pulling from GitHub. Also, if you're more than one person working on a code base, you need somewhere where you can like share the code, and you can also what we'd call like merge the code. Well, I would say, I'm going to teach you how to use GitHub. Ask AI how to use GitHub, or find some tutorials.
Or we might do a video on this because I also have learned this the hard way. And there's a lot of terminology like commit, push, pull. I have no clue. And then, my agent was asking me, do you want to commit or push this? I was like, well, I don't know. Okay, what is this? Very, very important terminology to learn. So I think maybe in the future we'll do one video on this. Yeah. But yeah, as you said, AI is a great teacher. I think what I learned is a video like this that we're recording now is almost like giving you the map of what you need to know, but it can be an unknown know. What I mean is like you need to know what you don't know, at least to be able to talk to AI. And the problem where you get into the pickle is where you don't know what you don't know, and then you don't know what you need to ask for. So yeah, this kind of video just gives you a good overview of the territory, what you need to be asking about, and what are the kind of the moving pieces. But then drilling into those moving pieces, AI is a great teacher.
Totally, yeah. Unknown unknowns. We're going to cover off a few unknown unknowns that I encountered during this. So gotchas that you want to be mindful of. Not just with iOS development, actually, with building anything. So skills like source control, that's useful regardless of what you're building, right? Like you and I vibe code apps for DMBA. We're constantly doing stuff.
Collaborating.
And it's easy. Like pick something, like just quickly have a play with using it. It sounds like a lot. It's honestly not. Like Alan and I worked it out.
Yeah, exactly. Like I have never used GitHub until a few months ago. And then, now I kind of get it because I just talked to AI. What is it? How should I do it? Why should I use it? How do I use it? Oh, what are the things I need to create? And then you start to get it, and it just becomes a important part of the stack.
It really does. And it takes that mental load off as well. Like, you know that stuff's being managed. Source control, important. You are going to need a website for your app. Apple requires it. You have to link to a privacy policy, contact information, all of that stuff on a live website. So they will absolutely look at your website. So Migrapulse has a website. It has terms and conditions. It has privacy, all of that stuff. They will look at it. Get AI to help you write.
Exactly.
Really right. That's what I did, and it passed muster. Everything in here I am happy with. I have checked it, but you need to have a marketing website. You're going to want one anyway. You're building something that, if you're building something you want people to download and commercially use, then let me tell you, Claude Code is very good for this kind of thing.
And make it responsive. If you're doing an iOS app, you want to have a responsive website.
Hell yeah. Okay, so website and hosting. Ideally, you want an email that's related to that domain. Apple, when you are setting up your developer license, they're going to want to verify you through email. It makes sense and it looks professional to have one.
So like info@Migrapulse.
Yeah. You're going to want somewhere to collect design inspiration or do your own design work. So I'll talk a bit later about my approach to this. You're almost certainly going to need, you don't necessarily need Figma, to be completely honest with you. I did do some exploration of my creative direction, app direction in Figma, but you can go and just grab inspiration from other sources. So I have a paid Mobbin account. Let me log in. If you've not seen Mobbin, it's kind of a place where it collects together design inspiration, like really detailed, lots of like onboarding flows and all kinds of stuff. So if you are looking for ideas, looking for inspiration, it's amazing. Like yeah, I pay for it because it's great to kind of stay abreast of things. Not an advert for mobbing, not paid.
What do you get if you are subscribed versus free user?
I can't remember, but I am a subscribed user. So to be honest with you, know what it was? I was using it, and then I remember like hitting some limits. It might have been like how many searches you can do or how many pages you can see. I can't remember now, but yeah. Unlimited collections, browse flows. Maybe it was flows. Maybe that because I was doing an onboarding flow. I was like, I want to get some inspiration for that. It's really good.
It's a good tip. Nice.
So there's that. Dribble. Yeah, Dribble used to be the thing, man. But yeah, could still look on there. But anywhere that you find inspiration, screenshots, whatever it is, you're going to need to collect that because you're going to use that to help you generate your initial designs using AI. If you want to use AI for that bit, which I highly recommend, particularly given how long this process already takes. And you're going to need a tool for doing generative design. If you're not going to design everything yourself in Figma, completely up to you whether you want to do that. You're going to use something that you can give a prompt to, you can give some inspiration to, that you can give direction to, that will then generate some ideas or some screens at high fidelity that you can start building from or expanding yourself in Figma. So this is kind of what I did. So I started off in Figma, sent some of that inspiration to one of these tools, saw what it came up with, took those back into Figma, refined them, and then started building them. You might just do all of the design in UX Pilot or something like that, which I'll show you in a bit, and just use their designs. Completely up to you. My workflow that I'm going to show you will work either way. You've got a few options there. I particularly like UX Pilot. I will get into why when we get into the build. Google have an option called Stitch. Claude Design, which launched a few weeks ago, is another option. It's very limited on tokens at the moment. So, yeah.
There's tricks, though. There are tricks. Yeah. Such as for Claude Design, basically just do the design system exploration and then transfer right away to Claude Code, where tokens are more, there's more of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's probably by the time you watch this, there's going to be more of these tools.
Yes. I mean, there's more than that
Figma,
already, but they're the ones I've used.
Exactly.
And then finally, going back to your question, Alan, I can't remember if this is absolutely strictly necessary, but because I have a limited company, I already have a company name that I was happy to use for building the app. I have a business bank account. Apple need those things in order to register you as a developer. And I think there was something to do with the tax end of things that meant I had to get this special number for my business. It's like some sort of global service that gives you a unique identifier for your business.
DUNS number?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, DUNS. Yeah, that's the one.
I'm just looking at this. Yeah, it says actually you don't have to be incorporated.
Okay.
But probably what is true is that you do have to have a way, depending on where you live, the country, you do need to be able to somehow invoice or just somehow make money and show to your tax authorities how you're making money. And sometimes being a natural person is enough. In some countries is not. So this is more on each individual maybe to figure out, again, with AI potentially, how is the case for their country.
For me, it made sense because obviously, I've got a lot of costs involved in building these things. When the money comes in, it's managed by my accountant, all of that good stuff. So that's the stack. And look, don't turn off now. This feels like a lot. It's probably few hours work to get done, and link in description, go and check out my man CodeWithChris, his first 3 lessons that we're going to link to, and I think he has a cheat sheet on how to do this, because he guides you through downloading Xcode, getting all the plugins installed that you need, all that good stuff.
So what he covers is the stack.
He covers the stack and kind of some really good workflow stuff as well.
Okay.
And we are going to be using his starter document as well, which I would recommend downloading. So a couple of them are here. I'm not going to give you the link to those because rightfully so, you have to just drop him your email address and he will send you a link to download these resources. So please props to Chris, and do check out his stuff. Anyway, Right.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay.
And thanks, Tom. So we finished, I guess now if we go back to what we learned, is this the journey part or where are we?
This is the journey, and yeah, we're about to get into the workflow, which actually might be quicker than what we've all gone through so far, even though there's more steps, but we'll see how we go. There's some screenshots of the app. I wasn't sure if we were going to demo or not today, but we did. Okay, so let's get into the meat of things. So how you spec the...
Before we go into this, Tom, do you need a short break or do we go straight into it?
Would love a comfort break.
Then, dear viewers, we'll take a short break and for you it's going to be 1 second. For us, it's going to be a bit more. Okay, be right back.
Cool. One thing we touched on was I use Cursor. So Cursor is an IDE that we already looked at. So it's a piece of software, but it's also subscription. Like you are paying to use the agents and the models through Cursor. So so I'm using like Claude's models most of the time. Instead of paying Anthropic directly, I pay Cursor and I have access to tokens, like millions of tokens that I can use for all kinds of models. So that's how you could use Cursor kind of on its own, just as a piece of software, but I need the agents. So that's why I pay a monthly fee to Cursor to have access to those agents and access to a lot of tokens. Worth saying that the way that we're developing today is quite token intensive because quality is important. We'll get onto that, but worth pointing out.
So how much is your monthly bill?
I pay for the $200 a month plan, the Ultra plan. You could definitely get away with one of the lower plans. But when I was building this kind of end of last year, it was like head down, like working on it full weekends, like hours and hours at a time. And I actually used 100% of my token usage for a month. And the good thing with Cursor is you pay $200 a month, but you get $400 of like API usage. And because they are buying these tokens in bulk, you're getting pretty decent prices for all the tokens that you're using. And also, if you're a very, very high user, this may change by the time this video goes live or maybe old in a few months. If you're a very high user, they're actually pretty good at letting you get away with like going well over, exceeding the limits. So
do they?
They sort of balance it out, a bit like a gym membership where some people are going to go once a month and some people are going to go every day and hammer the equipment. Like it all balances out. So they kind of, the people who are paying $200 a month and using maybe 50% are sort of subsidizing the people who are going over slightly. But for now, at least, it's got pretty generous limits.
So for this $200, you basically can use $200. You can slice that among Google models, OpenAI models, and Anthropic. Yeah. And on top of that, you're getting $400 of additional usage of any of those models. That's a pretty good deal. Like for example, I'm on a $100 plan with Anthropic, with Claude. I've never hit my weekly limit. I'm also a pretty heavy user.
Yeah.
So just to say that you don't have to start. My general advice is to start with 20. Once you start feeling, oh, this is not enough, then you upgrade to 100, see if that's enough. So don't just jump to 200.
No, absolutely.
Right away.
Great advice. But for my usage, and it starts to get like mega generous once you go to this 200 a month, right? 20 times the usage of these models. And like I say, very generous overage. So if you're going to be like head down for a month, like think about it. But yeah, get started on something lower for sure.
So I did the math recently on how heavily subsidized this is. So if you actually would pay through API tokens for that same usage of $200, you would pay like 10 to 20 times more.
Wow.
So that's kind of what kind of a deal that is. So if you have this $100 or $200 or even $20 plan, you would be paying $200 or $1,000 or $2,000 or even maybe $5,000 in actual usage for the companies, for them to be profitable. So we are being heavily subsidized at this moment, which is a great opportunity, but also it does worry me a little bit about getting hooked on this.
Yeah,
and then needing to pay. But I think, look, in the future, we'll also have local models. We'll have stronger and stronger open source. So for a lot of use cases, for a lot of people who are just maybe, they need to do some synthesis or analysis of some text, even like Migrapulse, those things not need like the latest models for analysis. So I think it's going to be okay. But yeah, just to know that we're living in a heavily subsidized times. And if you're a heavy user like Tom is, you're getting a hell of a deal.
You really are. Yeah. If you've got an idea, jump on it while this stuff's cheap. What I would say as well is the way that I structure this whole project, although it uses a lot of tokens, it's actually really token efficient. Like if I was just trying to vibe my ass off to get to the quality level that I got to, I reckon I wouldn't get there. And also I would probably eat through a hell of a lot of waste in tokens personally. Lots of like undoing, going again, undoing, going again.
Yeah. There is, if you're token efficient, you can get looking really, really be lean and have the lower plans as well. Did you see just a slight tangent, did you see the brief for this week in the AI Makers Club?
Yeah, I did.
It's all about the token efficiency and how to manage those things. So we might touch on some of these things as well here. So the specs, let's see.
Let's get into it.
What do we have here, Tom?
So this is like the biggest difference between, I would say, pure vibe coding and agentic coding with structure. So how this works is probably more towards how traditional developer might approach an app, but using agents to write the code. So if you have worked with developers before or been involved in like development sprints or been involved in planning how a build is going to work, you've almost certainly been involved in speccing up a project. So speccing up things like user stories, writing features up, writing down details of the screens that are required in a bit more detail.
Flows, yeah.
So flows and things like that. So that is basically what I did and what I would recommend doing with the context we're talking about here before any code is written, which is basically, instead of just kind of saying out loud and hoping you will get out a feature or a flow or a design that works for you, doing the work up front to create a spec document that then you give to your generative design tool and then to your agents, in my case, Opus in Cursor, to build in a really structured, methodical way. So first step in all of this is getting our spec document. And don't worry, we're not killing the vibes. It's vibes in, baby. But it's structure out. And I'm going to show you what that looks like in a moment. And then we are going to, when we get the structure out, that document, which is called instructions.md, markdown file, is what we're going to do to brief all our tools. And we are going to add to that document as we go. We're going to refine that document. Whenever we add a new feature, we're going to put it into that document before we start building anything.
How is it called, the document?
Instructions.md. Little quick primer on markdown files, maybe?
So it's a native, it's a file that is native to LLM models because it's just very token efficient. It's basically just a text file. It just formatted differently from Google Doc or Microsoft Word or PDF. So it's just a language, just a language document that you can read with a text editor. But it's very token efficient because it uses less tokens for formatting. That's as much as you need to know.
Yeah. And you can also, like, depending on the file type, you can set up your agents to always look at that document before they start doing anything.
So you said instructions MD.
Yeah, instructions.
And that would be
this.
I'm trying to type this. Oh, you have it there. Okay.
It's just we'll start looking at it in a moment.
Then sorry, get back to it.
That's fine. Love your handwriting. So here's an example, and we're going to go into detail of what that looks like. So I initially started by talking to AI about my idea, and I just like turned the microphone on, spoke for about 5-10 minutes about the idea, about what it needed to be like, the kind of features it needed, the kind of mood it had, all of that stuff, just brain dump, right? It's incredible just being able to, instead of, you're so limited by typing.
Yeah.
Just talk, baby.
Yeah, and you can just say so. The flow of talking, it's just so stronger that I know I say so many more things than I write. Not just that you're faster talking. I think you're 3 times as fast talking than typing, like an average person is. But you just get into the flow and you can really explain things. And usually, if I would just be talking like this to a developer, not a good thing would come out of it, right? But because this is LLM, I mean, it's a language model. It's so good at like picking up the nuance and really understanding what you mean. This is a huge unlock. Like just using voice in this stage. By the way, I think we might need to just mention in the stack also the voice to text software. So which one are you using? So
I'm using Whisper.
Super Whisper. Okay,
Yeah.
and am I using the same one? Let me see. Yeah, I'm also using Super Whisper, but there's also Whisper Flow and so on. So
yeah,
just
and a lot
if
of them
you're
now
interested,
actually have built-in microphone, right? Like you don't need to have. I do think the transcription is better on the Whisper-based.
it is, and it's stored and so on. But yeah, if you just want to kick it off with voice to text, you can use it now. Also, just the microphone. Tap the microphone button inside the app.
Yeah. So biggest unlock is talking. I am a better communicator verbally than I am on paper. And what you need to imagine is like your pair programming. I've actually shifted my seat over and imagining my friend is here. Like my friend Ed, for example, amazing developer. We've worked together for years. We have a great shorthand with each other. If I was sitting here describing to Ed like what this app needs to do, in his head, he would be thinking user stories, tests, all that kind of stuff. He would be asking me loads of questions about, okay, Tom, that sounds okay. That sounds interesting, but we need a bit more structure. I need a bit more detail. That's what's happening at the start of this. I'm brainstorming with the developer. I'm understanding the possibilities, doing a bit of critique. But basically, my creative juices are absolutely flowing out of me. I love this part of the process. Always have. So it's vibes all the way. So I am just saying things out loud. You can contradict yourself. You can say, oh, actually, you know what? Like I will get halfway through speaking to Claude or whatever I'm using to kind of capture all of this stuff. And I'll be like, oh, actually, that thing I said earlier, I've just thought of something else. Or in the process of speaking out loud, this is how my brain works, Alan. In the process of speaking out loud, other ideas will pop out, right?
Yeah. I did a video on this. I think I called people like us like voice processors. There's people who think by typing, and there's people who think by talking. I'm definitely a talker.
Yeah.
That's why sometimes I nag you for a call, just because we need to discuss something with someone. Yeah.
We look, you and I now, like voice notes 90% of the time, right? Like we just find that so much easier. So anyway, the starting point is vibe the hell out of your app idea, get it all out in the microphone, transcribed, and send it to Claude. Is my go-to at the moment, right? Very good at making sense of all of that stuff. We're going to go into some detail. Basically, what is going to happen after a bit of back and forth is Claude, our developer that's sitting next to us, is then going to go, okay, Tom, I've heard you. Let's structure this because I can't build something good without some structure. And what it's going to do is it's going to convert all of that kind of vibed, transcribed context into a structured document that describes our user stories from what I've told it, describes features, screens, data. I'm going to show you what that looks like in a moment. But that's basically what's happening. Vibes in, structure out. Absolute unlock, regardless of how you build something, whether it's iOS or not. Then I will hand off parts of that document to the appropriate tool. So when it comes to building out some screens, I'll give, we'll show this in a bit, I will give context of like what the screen needs to do that has been structured for me by AI in this document alongside some inspiration. When I come in to build, I will have my instructions document and we'll go through each build step and I'm going to demo that. So vibe at the start, structure before you build. That's my advice here. Let's move on. So the brain dump, we've actually already done this. We've talked about what that looks like. So let's have a look at the instructions.md template. So, hat tip Chris. So this is his document. This is what I would recommend starting in. I've slightly adapted this now, but a fantastic resource. So what I
Can you just do Command plus just so we can better see?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
So what we're going to demo later is me giving Cursor actually all the context about a new feature. We're going to go back and forth refining that, and then I'm going to say, okay, now can you make it into fit this document? So basically, all of that vibed context then goes into this document, and this is what Cursor will then read every time it's building a feature. So you're an experienced iOS app developer who explains things in grade 5 level English without technical jargon. Create a simple step-by-step requirements document for an iOS app using Swift, SwiftUI, and Xcode. We've set our constraints there. There's another document we'll show in a bit that goes alongside this. It needs to be readable, right? A bit like when you're doing documentation for a project, if you've worked in a product team.
Yeah.
So these are all the things it needs to include: an overview of the app, the main goals, and then user stories. And these will all be codified. So each user story has its own code. That's really important. And we'll come on to that in a bit.
Tom, how do we get to this document? So is this something that AI writes for us? It is, right?
Yes. So we are going to give AI this template.
So it gets the template, and then you basically tell it, based on my brain dump, structure it this way. Okay, get it now.
Absolutely. So yeah, we'll do all of the brain dumping first. We'll do back and forth, and I'll say, like, play back to me what you've heard. I'll be happy with that. And then I'll go, right, okay, now here's the template. Go and structure my thoughts in this way. I'm going to do a demo of that a little bit later when we're doing a feature.
All good. Just so I have the context of what I'm looking at and how do I get the final version. Okay, cool.
I'm going to show you my version of this as well. So it's going to write for me user stories. It's going to write down all the features, the screens, the data, and any extra details. And most importantly, the build steps. So this is like my developer friend thinking, okay, right, as a designer, I don't know where to start first. Like, what's the best thing to start with? I don't know. It's probably the data layer, like I've learned. So this will create basically a plan of what is built sequentially. Mm-hmm. And that each build step will reference other parts of this document.
Right.
Let me go back to this, because I think I've got that somewhere. So this is an example of this is a faked up example of what that brain dump might look like, right? I've got an app idea, I get migraines, blah, 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 kind of describing it.
Mm-hmm.
I will then say, does this make sense? What am I missing? And I'll have a bit of a back and forth. Claude, as always, like with LLMs, it's telling me it's the best idea and I'm going to be a millionaire. I will often ask it to be critical for me as well. So basically we have I will get it to critique my idea. I will help refine my idea, say where there's blind spots, where there's opportunities. And basically this conversation might go on for 5, 10 back and forth, something like that. Mm-hmm. Keep refining it. And then I will say, okay, now take whatever we've ended up with, which is a kind of brief that we've worked on together. Take the instructions.md template and create my version of that. So I'm going to show you what
Rory is very excited about.
Yeah, my dog is very excited. I'm just going to briefly.
He loves the idea.
Shall I go and deal with that quickly?
No. He loves the idea. I think we should hear that.
Because there's a lot of deliveries coming today. That's my dog. So if we look at instructions.md for my app, so after I've given it all of the context, it is now completed on my behalf the app overview. This is an iPhone app for people who get migraines who do not want to use a touchscreen during an episode. Let's the user start using Siri or action button, blah, blah, blah. It has the main goals outlined. All my user stories are here. These were my first user stories. As I added more features, I added in more user stories to the document.
Interesting. So when I look at this, my first question is, how is it different from the planning mode? There's a planning mode within the agents. So I usually and typically we just use those. Mm-hmm. It does strike me as more structured
Yeah.
and detailed. Is that the biggest difference, or what did you find?
It's the biggest difference, and I've got way more control. Like, I'm not asking, the structure and the fact that this is an evergreen document, whereas in plan mode, it's a bit more liminal, as in it's in that space between chatting and building, and you kind of don't go back to it. It's kind of gone, right, at that point. You can look at the history, but this is something that I'm building on constantly.
Oh, interesting. Okay, cool.
So this isn't a one-time thing. I've probably added to this document. Well, I mean, this document is months old now, but it's still very relevant. It's still used every time I build any new feature because it gives context to what already is in the app. It allows me to do things like get AI to write unit tests and things like that, which we'll come on to a little bit later. The most important thing for me is I can interrogate this document when it's generated. So when this document was first created by the AI, I did take time to read through it every line by line.
Yeah, I think that's the important part a lot of people miss. This is like, I'm just going to tell it what to do and it's going to one-shot it. So this is the key phrase, one-shotting it, that a lot of people expect from AI. And this is not, if you really want to build something good, your job is to review, keep poking, and actually take time to read this. And this is way less time than actually writing all of that. So, it just makes sense. But for some reason, most people just still want to go with, I just wanted to do it for me.
Yeah, because we've been sold this magic, right, from these vibe coding apps. But and look, this document was written on my behalf within half an hour. Like,
that's also magic.
Chat back and forth. The document was built for me from the template, and then I just read through it. Look, we're talking about maybe half an hour of work to create something that is going to give me such better. I showed that diagram earlier of where the ceiling is. Like, this just gives me so much more confidence as well that I'm spending my money, my tokens in an efficient way, and that the build is going to build something that I expect. So this is populated with my user stories. There's more because I've added features and I've added to this. It's longer than it was originally. And you can see that I've structured it. So guided log customization was a feature that I added a bit later. So we have new user stories for that. Features. So we've got all our features described in here. And you'll see again that they're all codified. And we'll get on to why that's important in a moment. What else have we got in here? Lots of features. Bear with, this document is quite long. Screens.
Take your time. Yep.
So we got all of our screens that we need to build. This again is guidance for Cursor when it's building it, but this is really, really, really useful for when you're using generative AI, because you can say these are the screens that I'm going to build. This is.
You mean generative design?
Yes, sorry, using something like UX Pilot or Claude Design or Stitch. I can give it detail about each of the screens that are needed in a workflow, and I can give it inspiration separately. So very, very useful for handing off to those tools. Then our data layer. This is such an important one. Like, I'm going to come back to this because I've got a cautionary tale for you towards the end around data. So this is all the different when my agents are building the database that all this data is going to be stored in, it needs to think carefully about what we need, how it should be structured, and how it should be structured a bit longer term. Because if you change your database structure in future and you haven't thought about this, or you don't have migration plans, you can break your app really easily when people update it. And we'll talk about that later, why that is a gotcha. I didn't have that happen to me. I've seen it happen. I've seen reviews for competitor apps of mine that have not thought about this. I'll come on to that because there's a lot of reasons.
Okay, that's a good clip. I'm curious.
Yeah. How data needs to be structured, and then like extra details. And then this is the bit, the build steps. So let me just go back to here. So we've talked about how MD grows. We're now going to get into the actual build. So this is what I want to go to next. So
the sauce.
The sauce.
Show us.
So there's 3 phases. And like I say, it sounds slow, but it isn't. It's really quick once you've got that groundwork in place. So we've built our base document, which is instructions.md using Chris's template. I've adapted it a little bit, but it's the starting point. We've brain dumped. We've created a structured instructions.md. I've checked it. I'm happy with all the things that it's got in there. I might have made a few little tweaks along there, but it's now this is what it looks like now. 57 user stories, 70 features, 17 screens. It didn't have that many to start with, but that's where we've got to over the course of 2 releases and 6 months of working on this app sporadically. So I did like the initial 2 months, and then I've spent maybe 2 weekends working on the latest build. So I've added to it recently. Phase 2 is designing the initial screens. Once you're happy with kind of your interaction design, your look and feel, your brand, you don't actually need this step so much when you're adding new features, and we'll see that later, because it's learned that style from building. So
it's defined,
yeah, it's
really good at just following what's there.
Yes, very good. Although a few gotchas again, which we'll go through. So we design the screens, and then we go through each build step. So the thing we're going to do next is show how we design the screens for our first version of the app.
Yep.
So let's do it. So what I would do, let's go into here. So this is the fun bit. This, as a designer, this is the bit where I'm like, I get to vibe out like the idea for the app, and I get to offload all of my creative ideas in a really unstructured way, because that's how I am, to AI. And it's so liberating. So, but this is work, and this is valuable work, and it doesn't take that long, but it's much better than one-shotting it and say, I want you to build this app and I want it to have a clean, modern design. Tell you what, you're going to get something that looks like purple.
Apple.
It looks like everything. That's not a good brief, right?
No, like, make it look great. Do not make mistakes. That's not good at prom.
We can do better than that. And that might be fine for your use case, and might be fine to get like a rough prototype going. But if you are like thinking about actually releasing something that looks really good and is worth being proud of, then spend a bit of time here. So this is the slowest, but the most intentional step in my workflow, because I don't want to spend loads of time going back, changing things once the build's underway. You absolutely can. I do. Like, the version of my app looks quite different to what it does now, but to get to a good first release, I spent a couple of hours working in Figma. So kind of working out my typography, my color scheme. I had a landing page that I designed before I started building the app. I designed that, and then I used that as like starting inspiration. So I knew the typography I designed a logo. I knew I wanted it to be dark theme because of like using it with a migraine. I knew the kind of interaction, the main interaction that I wanted was this like orb. I wanted it to be like very simple. So I had a bunch of like stuff already in Figma. But I knew that like onboarding and the flow was going to be important. So that's where I looked around for inspiration. So looking at onboarding flows in Mobbin, downloading existing apps from the app store and having a play with not necessarily migraine apps, but like other things like meditation apps, journaling apps, those kind of things, because though I thought they would evoke kind of the feel that I was going for. Collecting screenshots. And then I would also speak out loud to AI about what I wanted it to feel like. Like, that's often very, very hard to articulate in design. I've always had this problem, right? I think I'm a good designer, right? But I've always been frustrated by the gap between my skill and my taste. I think I have pretty decent taste, but I've always not been able to quite reach it. I can kind of describe what I want, but I can't always get there. So I think I'm pretty good at describing design and giving direction. And so without feeling self-conscious, I can, on my own in this room, be as, I don't want to swear, sort of as hand-wavy as I want about design, right? I wanted to invoke this kind of calmness and this meditative spatial feel. I want blah, blah, blah. So I would like offload all this kind of designer BS.
Yeah, you have a lot of those words. You're good at that, yeah.
And I have those moments. So basically, I'm collecting all of that, right? And then I would go to AI. I will go. Typically now I'm using Claude for various reasons. So I will go, right, I want you to help me on we've worked on the spec. We know what the spec is going to be. Now we want to work on the visual direction, the design. So I will talk at it for however long it takes for me to get all my ideas about visuals out of my head. I will also give it screenshots from Figma, from my existing designs, the URL to my landing page, clips from screenshots of apps, all of that context. So it's now got a load of transcription, also got a lot of visuals.
So you just bring those, do you bring those screenshots into a folder that you work in?
I'm lazy. I will just screenshot something, drag it in. I will send a screenshot from my phone to my Mac and drag it on.
And you just dump all of them at once at this stage?
Yeah, I just dump them all into the chat. There are almost certainly better ways to do that.
No, I mean, actually, this stage is really interesting to me because I've never done it this way. So please keep going. So, okay, you describe what you want. You bring in a lot of visuals. What's next?
Yeah. And then I would say, so this is kind of what I would say to it. I will give it I'll give it a verbal brief. I will also give it a load of examples, screenshots of the aesthetic I want. And then I would say, I want you to synthesize all this into a dense design brief. So I say to it, write as if you're briefing a senior creative director. Don't summarize. Be specific. Use evocative language where it earns its place, 3 to 4 paragraphs. This is not make it modern, make it, whatever. And so the thing that comes back will be very detailed. That if I was working with a senior designer and I was reading this out, I can imagine they would start to build a really clear picture in their head of what this is and what it isn't. So then there'll be a little bit back and forth again, right? And I usually will look at what comes out and go, no, not slightly off, or actually I've thought of something else that I need to add into the brief. So that when I pass that brief off to whatever design tool I'm using, it's got so much context. Because context is everything, right? That's the power of these things.
Interesting.
Any thoughts on how I could do this? Yeah, I feel like you're thinking, maybe there's a better way, or
no? You got me here with this step because what I would typically do as a non-traditional designer, non-visual designer, I would just skip that part. I would just basically go directly into building out a prototype, seeing how it feels, and then I would try to correct both things at once, which is visual and code.
Right.
And what you're doing is you're separating these two flows, and I find it's really interesting. And I would typically just start exactly as you say, like, hey, just build me something modern. Maybe I have an idea for a color or for a feel of it, but also I don't have that much language because I'm not a traditional designer, so I don't have that language to explain what I actually want. So I find this step super interesting, and I like it a lot. Yeah.
And this doesn't take long. Like if you've got the language and you've grabbed a few things, this is pretty quick. But again, it's going to save you a lot of work of going back and trying to retrospectively do something. The other big unlock with this, if I just said, without all this context about the kind of atmosphere of the app, the kind of interaction design I'm interested in, the inspiration, it will go and build the most averaged out version, right?
Yeah, the slop.
Not necessarily. No, I mean that's kind of underplaying it.
Visually, I mean,
it will visually, but also the flow that it builds for me will probably be quite safe. It will probably be quite technical. What I was trying to create, and what you've probably seen with Migrapulse, is something that has a real, I would describe as atmosphere to it. And if by giving it that context and giving it that inspiration up front, the first version that I got was very different to what you would have got, and actually very creatively challenging for me. I was like, oh God, I hadn't really thought that that's the way you could onboard someone. Rather than if I'd gone the way you did it, it might have built something quite expected. No offense, like
Yeah. No, you're right.
something predictable, but I would have then have to like re-engineer it to make it more interesting. And I might have missed a trick. I might have missed something really intuitive and something that is very usable in the context I'm describing, but also sets me apart. You know, onboarding is so critical.
This whole section, I think, is so far the most important part. If you really want to make an app that doesn't feel like a vibe coded app, as I said, what I usually did was just like create wades straight into the visual and the clickable prototype, and then it's really hard to make it feel different, because then I'm not really like diverging into trying to find the best possible option. I'm just reacting to what it already made.
Yeah.
So I'm in somewhere in this like corridor of safety. And this is a big unlock. So like really spending that hour, maybe 2 hours, to just find inspirations of what is it that you actually want will give the AI agent that guidance, much needed guidance, to make it feel custom made, make it feel different from just a generic thing you would get out of it. So yeah, you got me with this one. I think this one is just because these tools feel so easy to work with. I gravitate, and I see a lot of friends gravitating to just like you being AI, you just build something and then I'll rework it. And I think this is the better step how to do it.
I've circled here this point here, which I think is really important. The brief AI needs is a brief most people never write, and it's not a lot of work. And you said when I demoed the app to you, you were like, you had never known that was built agentically.
No.
It was handcrafted. I've crafted that, but the amount of work I had to do myself in Figma was reasonably low. But I described that. There's nothing out there that looks like that. And when people talk about everything's going to look the same, designing with AI, I don't buy that, because what is going to happen is we're going to continue to have people who are just one-shotting it and not breathing.
Yeah, most.
And everything is going to kind of look the same, and it's going to be a forcing function. You've got to try and find some uniqueness. And I actually think we're going to see some of the most unique, interesting, and novel design we've ever seen, because people are trying to avoid that average.
Yeah. And there's, that's a side tangent that let's not go into. But one thing I do want to touch upon is you mentioned in your process, you did some work in Figma. Mm-hmm. Me, I'm not able to do that. But I think even if I was not able to do that, I would just do what I usually do when we worked with brand designers, visual designers, find references, create my Pinterest board, create my whatever, just a mood board. And that would just already be what 99% of people don't do.
You don't need to do anything in Figma. I would say the amount of work I did in Figma versus speaking, like it was probably 20% Figma, 40% transcribing, like describing, as far as like what it went into getting the initial direction. And then whatever was left was like inspiration, like screenshots and things like that.
Right.
So that was kind of the menu. That was the recipe. But you could absolutely get away without the Figma bit, because the Figma bit is the equivalent of clipping inspiration, right? It was just me clipping something I had designed as inspiration, if that makes sense. So
maybe one more question on the visual aspect. What I find sometimes is that when I can get to 90% of how I want this thing to look like, but then the last 10%, Claude just gets really stubborn, or like doesn't really know how to, do the final mile with a design. Did you then have to actually do some things by hand, or did it actually
there's
more or
a
less
few
one
screens
shot?
that I had to, well, it's quite, once something was built, I almost always went in and refined it. But most of the time that was by talking to AI. There were only a couple of elements where it wasn't quite getting it, and I had to take it into either, I've started using Claude Design a bit more, and actually there's a bit more control, or going back into UX Pilot and refining in there before exporting. And I'm going to show you UX Pilot in a moment.
Okay, and that was enough for you.
Yeah, it was
great to hear.
Absolutely plenty.
Keep going, Tom. Okay, you got us now.
Okay, so the handoff. So the brief that we got from the last slide, goes into our tools. So this is the brief that came back, right? This is it describing, like a senior designer or a brief for a senior designer, all of my offloading, all of my inspiration. It's given this really concise description of what we're trying to get to with our design feel. So this is what we're going to hand off to our tool of choice. And my tool of choice when I was building this, and it probably would still be my starter, is UX Pilot. So let's get into it. So there's a few things that I hand off UX Pilot when I'm starting. I hand off a section of instructions.md. It needs to know, okay, you've told me what this app wants to look like, but what the hell do you actually need designed, right? So for me, the first thing that I got it designed was my onboarding, actually, because onboarding, the most critical part of your design for getting users, at least.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get that right, and I knew that it would help me understand the kind of tone of voice, the kind of tone that I wanted in the app through onboarding. It's usually quite a creative part of the design process. So I wanted to hand off like the onboarding screens. So I would go to my, let's find screens. Where would it be? Screens. So I would copy my onboarding spec here. So these are the onboarding screens that I needed. Welcome, why we need to enable voice logging, why we're using the microphone, all this kind of stuff. This was the first version, actually, of onboarding. It's been added to since then. So this came from that initial brain dump of what the app needed and me describing what people would need to give access to in order to have the app. So this is what I want generative AI to have its first go at. So I would copy this, and I'll show you in a second where that would go. So we would go into UX Pilot. So this is its first stab at those onboarding screens from a little while ago. And in here, we'd go, so UX Pilot, okay, quick bit of context on UX Pilot.
101, yeah.
101. UX Pilot is a generative design tool. Can we open the marketing site quickly? Again, not sponsored, not paid for by anyone, but big fan. It basically, you give it prompts and inspiration, and it will generate designs for you that you can then adapt. You can send into Figma. It's great for getting started, like really, really good for getting started. And the quality is very high, in my opinion, for those first generations that it does. I think they have different levels. I'm paying for this. This is my token usage up here. For me, this UX Pilot has had the best results as far as first shot at a design based off the context I give it. For me, it also has the best tools for editing once you've got that first design out.
Better than Claude Design.
Sorry?
Better than Claude Design?
It's a close run thing. It's a close run thing. What I would say is it's got the best editing tools at the moment. So once you've generated something, being able to go in and actually refine it, I have found it better so far for that. I have no doubt that Claude Design is going to be very good very soon. Also, and we will get onto this during the build, the quality of code that you export from UX Pilot that is interpreted by Cursor or whatever model you're using, I have had greater accuracy of build using exports from UX Pilot than I have from Claude Design. Claude Design has done pretty well, but I've had to do more work to get it in shape after the fact.
Interesting.
They almost certainly build their pages, the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, slightly differently. And for whatever reason, the versions I've got out of UX Pilot for me when I was building this were like really good. Now, look, tools are changing all the time. It's 12th of May. In a month's time, that might have changed.
Yeah. Okay, so UX Pilot is basically a tool that helps you create screens, the brand, out of text.
Yeah.
And then you can edit it. Okay.
Text and images. So
text and images, okay.
You can do either a single screen or you can create a flow. So how I did the flow, so I would you would describe the overall context of the flow. So I'm actually going to talk to this now. We're going to onboard users for a migraine app that allows them to log their symptoms using voice. Okay, so then we would add steps to this. So I would basically go back to cursor and I would grab screen 1 in there, add step, and I would go through and I'd put all of the steps from my document into here. What I would also add into here, or this was certainly how I added it at the time that I was doing this a couple of months ago. What I would say is UX Pilot, they're adding features all the time, so things might have moved a bit since then. In here, I would paste in the creative direction as well. So it'd be like, this is the flow we need to build. These are the steps. This is the look and feel that I'm going for.
The vibe.
And I would also attach the same inspiration that I gave the AI as well.
So you only use the AI for that core text, but you still use the same images. Okay, I think that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I think actually we can see the historic prompts that I used actually 107 days ago. So yeah, here's the master prompt and then detail of the screen. So that was what what AI helped me put together.
Yeah.
And then this is the specific screen, and they'll have that for each screen. So these are pretty old.
Yeah.
This is the first version that came out. And the thing that you can't really see in here now is actually, and I don't know why, these were all kind of animated. Oh no, you can see. So it actually puts in interactions as well, which is really neat. And so I'm getting ahead of myself. So I would go in here, I would put in all the steps of the flow, hit generate, and then it will go away and generate all of these screens. There's a few different modes. You can do like max mode where it will like do really high res and like really go to town. Or if you're just looking to maybe get some initial flow, like maybe you actually don't know what the flow should look like and you just want it to give you some ideas, you can use like a lower intense mode, that fewer token mode where it just kind of gives you like a prototype, an early prototype. But I was giving it so much information that I wanted to see like high res screens.
That's really cool.
And then what you can do then is you can re-prompt off the back of these things. So you can go, actually, I want to generate a variation, or I want to see a desktop version of this, or I want to do an accessibility review. That's another thing that's really nice about UX Pilot is, as you can probably tell from this, I'm not sure these grays are terribly good for anyone. Like some of these choices here, contrast isn't very good. So it can tell you where it might fall down accessibility-wise. All very important to get through Apple as well. And things that designers should care about. So that's where I say like Claude Design is really good at generating high quality designs, but it doesn't quite have the tool set that UX Pilot has at the moment. So for me, I'm still using UX Pilot.
Say this again. So you think Claude Design is good at what?
It's very good at it could probably get as good quality or even better screen designs for me using this context. Absolutely. Like I've used it for a bunch of things and I'm very, very impressed with what it gets out. What it doesn't quite have at the moment are these kind of features, which you can pass stuff off to Claude Code and you can chat with it and do accessibility reviews. But from a workflow perspective, having all of those tools on hand is really helpful. This tool is built by a chap called Adam, who's a designer, I believe, as well. He gets the kind of designer process, so it's a bit more geared towards designers. So
one question. So once you got this, right, how did you go from this to what we saw in the production app? Because it does look way more polished.
Okay, so what we do is obviously UX Pilot has read the specs, it's read the brief, and it's generated a first pass. What I then did was a bit of back and forth. I generated a few variations. This is where we ended up with this. So what I did next was basically, I'm kind of happy with that. I'm happy for it to build that version, and I will go back and maybe do some tweaking within Cursor. So
building the version like now functional version.
Functionality-wise. So there is a bit of refinement that we would do within UX Pilot potentially. So I might say, look, make those buttons a little bit bigger. Let's apply those accessibility suggestions. Let's change the typeface. I'd rather do more of that in UX Pilot before I start building, personally. But I could do a bunch of that stuff during build. For me, workflow-wise, it makes sense to try and get this a little bit more polished before I start building. But it's more token efficient. It's just how I like to work, but you can do both ways. So basically, I would be getting UX Pilot to regenerate and updating those screens until I'm happy, like with a version that I want to bring into Cursor to start actually building in Swift.
So then I still have the question. So how did you go from this version that we see in the UX Pilot to the visual version that you showed us in the demo in the beginning? Was that within UX? Okay.
And so this is how we do it. So in Cursor now, we have got instructions.md. Sorry, the dog's getting excited again.
Yeah, he's excited about this Markdown file.
He should be. It is an exciting thing. So build steps. So we would go through, and so we're back in Cursor now. So I've got my agent view over here. So I'm going to use Opus 4.7. Full disclosure, and I could definitely be a bit more efficient. I basically am using 4.7, Opus 4.7 all the time, Alan. You'd be horrified. I could probably use Sonnet occasionally a little bit more, or get it to choose. But you know what? When I did the latest version of the app, I actually put it into auto mode and let it choose my models, and I was just not getting quite the quality that I was used to, and there was inconsistency with how it dealt with errors and things. Yeah. So I just went back to just having 4.7 on all the time.
Shh, right? Don't tell anyone. Because people tell you to use Sonnet for building. But I'm the same. Like, my point of view is, if I have enough tokens, I'm just going to keep using Opus. But when I see that I start struggling, then I'm going to go to Sonnet. Or I use Sonnet always for like sub-agents and for research and things like that. But for building, I usually go with Opus.
Yeah. So the very first thing we're doing when we're building this app is we're going to say to the agent, all we're going to say is build step B001 from, and then we go at instructions.md. I'm not going to send that because I've already built this, obviously. Mm-hmm. So what we are going to do, we're going to go back and we're going to build something in a bit when we build a feature. So if I sent that up now, the agent would start looking at instructions.md. It would go to build step, build B001, and it would start creating the SwiftUI project. Now we have a separate document here, another one of Chris's documents, which is Cursor rules. I'm not going to go into this because it's a bit more technical, but it kind of says how the app should be set up and things like that. So let's imagine we're doing step 2, because that's a bit more relevant to this workflow. So step 2, build.
By the way, is this how you would build? Like, you would just go sequentially through each of those?
Yes.
Oh, you're not building everything from.
No.
Why not?
I want to test stuff as it's built. So I want it to build the home screen first. I want to check how the home screen looks. If I'm happy with that, I'll commit it, and then I'll move on to the next build step. Sometimes I will combine build step if they're very, very related, but this is what I mean about being methodical and avoiding like your code getting a bit out of control, avoiding trying to do too much in one go and then having to undo a bunch of stuff. If I said go ahead and build steps 1 to 15, I build it and then I realize, oh, this looks shit, or something's not working properly. I've then got to work out or ask AI to work out why that's not working properly. So
interesting.
You choose your approach. If you want, you tell it to build steps 1 to 15. You'll get there quickly. I prefer to be a bit more methodical, and that is how a lot of developers would approach doing this. Of like, okay, this step first, this step first, this step first.
You're more in control.
Way more in control.
Probably also can be way more token efficient because you could be building. You can be starting new agent chats for each new build, which. New chat is always more token efficient. And by the way, you also get better performance if you start new chats for new builds.
Right.
There's like a drop off that happens the longer the chat is. Oh, that's interesting, Tom. I didn't know that's how you're building these things.
So it's looking at, so build the home screen. That has two other references in here. So that is screen 001 and feature 007. So it's not just going build home screen. Okay, I'll see how I get on. It's actually got some references here of what it needs to build. So if we do a search here, let's find, where's my search? Yeah, 001. So this is the user story. As a user, I want to start a voice log quickly so that I don't need to touch the screen. Okay, that's fine. That's kind of standard user story stuff. Let's go back to that build step. And then feature 007. So let's find that. Feature 7, entries list. What it does, shows past entries with date and preview. When it appears on the main screen, if something goes wrong, show an empty state with a state start voice log button. Now, when I build, I'm not going back and checking these features because we know. Remember when we built this document originally, I read through it and made sure it made sense. So now whenever it goes and builds, it goes and looks at all these sections of the document and it knows exactly what it's supposed to be building and when. And I have confidence that it's only building what I asked it to build.
I like it.
It's not, this is where it doesn't feel like vibe coding anymore. It's agentic. In my opinion, it's like using agents to develop in a more structured and maybe more traditional way. The results have been incredible for me as far as like getting out what I expect, not being like surprised or frustrated. Don't get as many build errors. It's worked for me.
Yeah. I think one of the follow-up videos to this one could be a real developer reviewing Tom's vibe coded app, because what I see here is this looks very structured, and I have a feeling that if somebody reviewed it, they would be, well, it's my assumption, they would say, oh, wow, did you build this? Because it just doesn't seem like a traditional vibe coded app where people just like throw stuff against the wall. I mean, I do it this way, I just speak into it and then it builds something. If I like it, that's it. I'm definitely adopting this for some builds. I mean, it doesn't make sense for everything.
We
but
said at the beginning, like if the games we build, I would never do this. If I was doing myself a little utility tool for me, never do this. If I was doing like a fun if I was doing a marketing website, no way I would do this. I'm doing it because of the context, right?
Yeah.
I'm not
if you're building an app that you want to charge for, if you want to monetize this, that's when it, I think, makes sense.
Yeah, and when you're dealing with like important data and a whole bunch of reasons where I think this starts to pay dividends. And this is not slow. Like it would probably build this in 30 seconds, this step.
Yeah.
I would check it, move on to the next thing. It actually took me probably 2 hours to build the whole app. And like I say, the quality that came out. So maybe it was, I think you could get to a stage where you've got you've got instructions.md. You could probably do that in half an hour if you know the app you want to build. You could probably do your first designs in UX Pilot in an hour, something like that, from like briefing to inspiration to whatever. And then you could, because you then got everything to build, you could then have this build that first version of the app that is high quality, reliable, working, and could actually be shipped within an hour, half an hour, something like that.
Let's keep going. This is crazy. So what I'm still trying to understand is, no, actually keep going. And then if you don't hit my question, I'll come back to it.
So the thing that we need to give to Cursor as well, so we've given it the build step and it will reference multiple things during the build. So you can see all these build steps reference other parts of the document. So screen 3, feature 6, feature 11, data level 2. So there's a bit of data that needs to be built into the database there. So there's all these steps that it's referencing. I'm not worried because I checked this at the beginning. I was cool with everything. If it hits a problem, it will tell me. The thing that it doesn't have here, though, still is what the hell do you want the design to look like, Tom? Where's that stuff from UX Pilot? So let's say I am doing build step, build the home screen. Do I have that in UX Pilot? This isn't actually the home screen. There's the home screen. So this is the home screen. So we've got build step 002 using screen 1 and feature 7. I want it to look like this. So what I can do, I could take a screenshot of that and send it over to Cursor. It'd probably do a reasonable approximation of it. And that's getting better and better all the time. That's one way you could do it. The way that I do, that I have had really good, accurate results with, is sharing. So you can create a link. We'll copy that link. And then this gives you full screen with all the animations, all the typography. And the important thing here is what if I hand this link off to Cursor. So I would say build set B002 design, and I would send it that link. It's now got all the specs and it's got the exact design that I want it to build. The beauty here, and this is like one of my fundamentals, is give your AI HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, because Cursor can read all that code. It's not always very good at actually looking at an image and deciphering it properly. Alan, you've told me about this.
Yep. Yeah, basically, it doesn't have the same vision we do. It still needs to translate an image into zeros and ones. It's getting very good at it, but still, I think if you give it HTML and CSS, you're just getting codified visual, and you will just get a much more, first of all, the first build is going to be much better, but also in the future, it's going to be able to keep that visual intact, not intact, but unified.
Yes, absolutely.
So this UX Pilot link gives AI all of that, HTML, CSS.
Yeah. You can do the same thing from Claude Design. I don't know whether you can do it from Stitch. You probably can. When I was first using UX Pilot, I actually used to download the HTML as a package, and I would structure it in my build. So I used to have a folder in here. Well, I've still got it designed. There's a few bits in there. So I would basically download the HTML, put it into here, and then I would reference the file here. So it'd be like at homescreen.html, and then it would be looking at a local version. That was because at that point, Cursor just was struggling with like accessing these URLs and stuff, or there was some problem. I can't remember what it was. But now passing off URLs seems to work really well. So it's also much quicker and also keeps things more up to date. Like when I was downloading HTML, like that's a point in time, whereas I can kind of manage everything within UX Pilot.
And by the way, Claude Design has the same feature, so you can also just export to Claude Code. Yeah, it's all the same.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I've found I have started experimenting with Claude Code for like my new design, and it's been very, very good for that. When I've handed off HTML from Claude Code to Cursor, it's not been quite as accurate in how it interprets it as what I've got out of UX Pilot. It's close, but I've had to do more work afterwards, and I don't know why that is. It might just be the way, because like anything, right? Like you could work with 3 different front-end developers, and they would all slightly differently structure how this is displayed. There's something about UX Pilot and working with what I do in Cursor that seems to get better results straight out the bat. But they're all very good now at just passing off HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
Ultimately, everyone is going to have their own like workflow. This tool I think the learning here is pick a design generation tool such as UX Pilot or Claude Design or Stitch, and if you follow your workflow, work with that first, and only then hand over to your agent. See if it follows. If not, maybe then try a different agent or different design generation tool. And what you're saying is UX Pilot for plus Cursor works really well.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it works well for me. Again, like so much of this stuff where some people will watch this video and they'll be like, oh man, like Cursor, this is better than Cursor, or this is better than UX Pilot. There's so much to be said for what you've got good at using and quick at using, right? What works for you. No doubt at some point I will make the leap to something else for all kinds of things. And I'm always fiddling with stuff, but I have my favorites, and these are them at the moment.
But my takeaway from this video is not I should be using Cursor, because I'm just really well versed now in anti-gravity and use Cloud Code within it. But I have other learnings, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to change my main daily driver, but I might peek into having a different process, maybe actually also trying UX Pilot for the design exploration and so on. So good remark.
The other thing that is really neat about using these things is you can prompt it about like animation and interaction design. So one of the things I had in a previous version of the app was these buttons. I got to a stage where I was generating ones where it had like a little glow that went around the button. It was really neat. I could have used, there's a whole bunch of tools out there that you can use, like Lottie and stuff, I think it is, for like animation and stuff. These tools are very good actually at giving you versions of animated buttons or interactions or transitions. And just being able to describe them is really useful. So then when it's building, it knows what the transitions should look like and the interaction design and things like that as well. So by using HTML and not just a screenshot, you actually are giving it so much more to work with. Cool. Right, let's go back to our...
Yeah, what's the next step?
So basically, we would go through... So I would build steps... So you said earlier, are you not just getting it to build like a whole bunch of steps in one go? What I would normally do, I would normally be packaging up a few build steps before I do a test. So if I'm doing onboarding, for example, I would get it to build all of the steps for the onboarding. So, you know, it might be 3 or 4 build steps for onboarding. Then I would test it. If there's a really critical screen, like maybe the entry details screen, I would build just that screen and then I would test. I'm going to show you what that looks like. That's my own judgment. I'm always looking at the build steps before they happen so I understand what's about to get built. And then I would kind of choose what feels like the appropriate time to actually test what is built.
So when you say test, what does that mean? Like, wouldn't you click on, like, if you have built one, would you then open what AI has built and have a look at that? Or
I wouldn't, in this instance, for example, build 001 is building the SwiftUI project. SwiftUI is the native language, Apple's language for building out apps. There's nothing to see at that stage.
Okay.
There is for build step 2. So build step 2, I would build it. I would do build step 2. Here's what the screen looks like, and then the difference between like a native app and a web app is if you're building a web app, you can like just keep refreshing your browser and you can see live what's being built. When you're building a native app, you have to compile the app before you can see the changes. So that's where you have to use the Apple simulator in order to test your work. So every time I would finish some build steps and I get a successful message back from Cursor to say that's worked, that's all good, I would then compile what's known as like compile and run the app. So you have to do that every time you test. Now you can either do that in Xcode. So just going back to Xcode. Xcode is Apple's native IDE. It is looking at the same code base that Cursor is working on, but I don't do any of my coding within Xcode. I need it in order to publish, like I said earlier, to publish the app live. But I can run the app in the simulator using this little play button at any time, and they will open the simulator. However, I have a plugin installed in Cursor called SweetPad, and that allows me to open the simulator from Cursor instead of having to go to Xcode. So it's just a little bit of a workflow win. So down here, when you've got SweetPad installed, which if you watch Chris's guide that we've told you about.
Can you spell out the name?
SweetPad. So it is spelled
SweetPad. So like iPad.
Yeah.
But sweet.
SWEET pad. SweetPad.
It's an extension for Cursor.
SweetPad Cursor.
Oh, okay. And it's also available for VS Code.
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. So this allows you to run your projects, your Xcode projects in applications like VS Code, applications like Cursor. So just a bit of a workflow thing. So basically down here, when I click on the SweetPad tab, I can then choose what I want to run it in. So do I want to simulate it in iPhone, iPad, watch, all kinds of stuff here. But you have to select what you want to view it in.
See then. So yeah, go ahead.
No, go on.
So I have built something. So if I click on that tab, the SweetPad, and now I click on iPhone 17 Pro, how will it know which code base I wanted to display, and like how does that actually work?
So the code base never changes. So the
because it's already open as a project.
It's already a project, and when you're building for, if I was to do an iOS, this actually runs in iPad as well. Like all the code runs fine in iPad. It would probably run on a watch, but it would look awful. I would have slightly different section of the code which allowed it to run on that. So basically, I choose whichever device I want to run in. My app is iPhone primarily. I do have an iPad version. And then I click play. It will build the project and it will run it in whatever device I have chosen on my laptop. So we're going to do that now. So SweetPad, build and run. We're going to launch the app. So down here in terminal, you can see it's kind of working away. It's building the app. So it's taking all that code, it's compiling it, and then it's running it. If the build failed for any reason, so say I've done a build step and it's broken the build, I would then go into Cursor and say, okay, here's the message from terminal. We've got a problem. Let's fix it. There's another reason to do build steps sequentially is because one of those build steps might break your build. You know, like any developer, it's not perfect. AI can get a little bit carried away sometimes and change code that you didn't ask it to. And that might create problems. So it's another reason to build quite methodically. So we've now got an iPhone running on my desktop, and I can open the app and run it locally, or it seems to be not happy at the moment. We saw it earlier. It was working. I've obviously done something here to break it.
Yeah, no worries. So, but basically you can...
Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
The other thing you can do, but you do need to use Xcode for this. And this is something I highly, highly, highly recommend you. Honestly, this is the best way to test, is on your own device. So in Xcode, as long as you've connected your phone to your laptop, and usually via a cable, and giving it allowed it to trust the device, I can then run whatever I'm working on locally on my actual phone. And that's the way to test it, because everything feels a little bit different. You obviously can't test haptics, like physical effects that you're using, unless you're holding it. So I would always recommend testing on device as much as possible. So to do that, I select my iPhone, hit play, and then basically, as long as I've got Simulator app downloading on here, I can then run the app locally on my phone.
Is there any specific settings we should know about how to set this up in Xcode, or like do you just open a project? So you open
just
a file,
have your project open, and obviously we'll have the resources we've pointed you to as far as setting up Xcode. Will explain how to set up the project, how to structure it. I don't touch Xcode until I'm ready to send the app to Apple to review. So I do very little in Xcode. If I was an actual Swift developer, I would probably use Xcode to do some coding, or not. I think people are moving towards things like Cursor, even if you're an experienced developer.
But then maybe I'm not getting it. So what's the point of Xcode?
So Xcode it's like the final step that you can only do, and we were going to come on to it, you can only do in Xcode, which is... it's called archive. Actually, I haven't got the right. I would have to build it up here. We'll come on to that. But basically, Xcode is required for the very final step of sending the app to Apple. You can't do that any other way but in Xcode.
Okay, got it.
That's why you need Xcode You don't have to have it running all the time. If you've got SweetPad running and you're not worried about testing on your actual phone, then you don't have to have Xcode open while you're working. Xcode is constantly syncing. It is always looking at the same files as Cursor. So if you imagine you've got a folder on your desktop where you're working, when you open the project in Xcode, it's looking at that folder. And when you open the project in Cursor, it's looking at that same folder. They're just two different bits of software for working on the same project.
Got it. So what would be helpful for me now, and that's why I'm assuming it might be for a viewer as well, is just like, can we zoom out a little bit just to know where we are in the process?
Yeah.
So if we go back to the Miro board, so where are we?
So we've gone through and we've done our build steps. We've given we've given it the live URL. We've told it the rules to follow, which is the Cursor rules document, which we haven't looked at yet. And now Cursor read all of that context and it coded that particular build step, probably a feature or a screen. So what has happened is it's generated code. So it has created code based off of the instructions that we gave it and based off the design we gave it. So it'll have written some code, some Swift code. It'll have made any edits it needed to other files. So what you'll often find is as you add features or you add screens, it might add new code to the data layer, or some other like Swift view. They're always getting built up. And it will play back a summary of what it built. And when we build a feature in a moment, you'll see that in action. So once it's finished building something, it will say, this is what I did. It's ready to test. If it hits any problems, it will tell you that as well.
Okay, I think I get it. So basically, if we zoom out a little bit, is what we have done. If you maybe just follow my cursor for a second, because I just want to see if I understood you correctly. So what we have done first we basically built the specs, right? That was this part.
Yeah.
Where was it? Where is it? The base doc.
Yep.
After that, we basically did the designs, the visual designs.
Yeah.
And we did that, or you did it in UX Pilot. Well, first you found inspiration, then you actually used the cursor or your Agentic AI to write up that prompt, this one.
Mm-hmm.
And then you took that inspiration plus this text into a generative design tool such as UX Pilot to give you those screens.
Mm-hmm.
And only then we started building that. So we basically took the spec stock and we took the screens and started merging those together into little bits and pieces of the app, and we slowly building that.
Yep.
Is that the big picture?
That's absolutely it. Spot on. So these are the kind of things that any developer worth their salt would want before they start working. Show me.
They're not just vibe coding. Like
they're not. It could. Like, look, you could not give Cursor this stuff, and you might get to the same result I did. I don't think you would. I don't think you'd get there as reliably or as with as low frustration, personally. So yeah, you've given it spec document, instructions.md, you've given it HTML versions of designs, and you have then told it which build steps to go through in order. You're doing those sequentially and you're testing as you go. Perfect.
Okay, let's keep going. So what's the next step?
Do I have time to get some water? Because I am harsh.
No. Of course you do. So yeah, let's take a 5-minute break and just come back. Okay, let's jump back in. Where did we stop?
We're back. Okay, so I appreciate the process that I've been describing. It may be a little tricky to follow. Hopefully people have been following, but now we're going to actually do it. We're going to do a live demo. So you're going to get to see all of this in action. So hopefully you've stuck around to this point, because this is where it will probably come to life a little bit more clearly. So obviously I already have the app built. So I didn't have the opportunity to kind of build from scratch for you. And I think there would be a lot of kind of scaffolding to do, which would be a little bit boring to watch. What we are going to do is we're going to demonstrate that process from speccing something to building something and testing it in the simulator using a feature. So this is going to happen to you when you're developing any app, web app, iOS app, whatever it is. You're gonna get through the process and you're gonna go, you know what, I need that feature, or some user's going to tell you about it. You're always going to evolve, and you're going to build on your existing code base. So that's what's happened to me more than once. So I've built a version 2 of the app. It looks different to what you saw in UX Pilot because I've updated the look and feel. I've also refined some of the workflow using Cursor. So it's just a natural part of developing any product. So we're going to use that as an opportunity. And who knows, this feature might make it into the next build. But so this is a live demo, and we're going to be adding a new feature which is designed to help people recognize the kind of migraine symptoms that might happen before an actual migraine starts. So in migraine world, and actually in any diagnosis world, in any medical condition world, this is known as prodrome. So make sure I'm saying that correctly. Prodrome. An early symptom or set of symptoms that appear before the onset of full-blown illness. It tends to be used in context of migraine. So it's this bit here. So this is usually this is from the American Migraine Foundation. Thanks, guys. It's usually the bit that happens a few hours or a few days before your migraine really sets in. A lot of the time, there's not a lot you can do. Once this starts, this is kind of inevitable. But what you can do when you're in the prodrome area, if you recognize your prodrome symptoms, you can prepare. So my migraines are pretty debilitating when they happen, like dizziness, sickness and stuff. I don't want to be doing a lot of travel or staring at screens for too long. So I will be like preparing for that. There are things you can do if you recognize your prodrome symptoms to either avoid a migraine or make it less severe. So if I feel my prodrome symptoms happening, I would be like, right, okay, we need some fresh air. We need to eat properly. We need to avoid screens for a little bit. We need to take our preventative medication. So I have some medication that if I take it in time, can either prevent it happening altogether or make the symptoms much less severe. So prodrome 101. So we are going to now build out a feature that tries to give our users some indication of what their prodrome symptoms might be. And that might be helpful for them to avoid migraines. Full disclosure, I don't think this is a feature that fits my app, but we're going to use it as a thing today because it's starting to err into the advising medical advice area that I am not comfortable at the moment doing. But for the sake of this, that's what we're going to use. Alan, any questions about?
No, makes sense.
Good stuff. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to brain dump the feature. I'm going to verbally tell AI about prodrome and my feature idea. We are then going to get it. We can do a little bit of back and forth, refine it, and then we're going to add the build steps, the features, the screens, and the data that is needed to build that to instructions.md. So there will be new build steps needed. There will be new screens needed. There will be new features needed. And Cursor will know exactly what it needs in order to build that accurately and efficiently. Before I start building, I'm going to review what it's suggesting those steps are. I am going to design some new screens. I'm actually not going to in this instance, and this is going to show you how powerful AI can be once it's got a good design system in place, a good understanding in place. But you could design the screens. We're then going to prompt Cursor to start building the build steps that we need. Then we're going to watch it build, and then we're going to run simulator so that we can test that feature. Sound good?
Yes, excited. Let's see how it's done.
So what's going to happen, what we're going to end up with is new user stories added, new features added to the document, new screens and new build steps, all related to prodrome. So that document is going to get a bit bigger. So first thing we do is I verbally describe this new feature, like what it needs to do, what the app should be like. I've actually pre-done this, but we are going to take it into Cursor and start having a bit of back and forth to refine the idea. So this is exactly what I kind of read out to it about the feature. So let's copy this and let's put it into Cursor. We're going to paste it in, and this might be something that I'd read out to it. I'm actually, you know what? I'm going to use Sonnet. Do you think that would be a better model in this instance?
So I think you're still in the planning phase, right?
Yeah.
Now in planning, use Opus, and maybe then after we have the instructions MD done, then go into Sonnet.
Okay.
That's how people suggest to use it.
I'm actually going to go to ask mode. So ask mode is where it won't do any building without asking me. So I can have confidence it's not going to go and make any changes to my code. So that's one of the things I use in Cursor quite a lot is ask mode, because I know it's not going to touch the code. It will get to a stage during our conversation where it will go, I'm ready to build, and I have to switch it to agent mode in order to build. So little thing to be mindful of.
What other modes do you have available in Cursor?
There is a plan mode and a debug mode, all very useful. And we're not going to go deep on any of those today. Agent mode is where I spend most of my time. But let's go ask mode. So I'm going to send that up. So what I've said to it at the end of my brain dump is, what am I missing? What would you ask me before structuring this into instructions.md? So before it starts adding anything to this document, I want to make sure it's feeling confident in what we're about to build. So let's send that up.
So one pattern I'm seeing is you're being way cautious than most users of AI tools are.
Mm-hmm.
You're still confident like by using it, but some people are just like, you do stuff, like, yeah, please just do stuff. And here you're like actively putting like speed bumps essentially in the process, like, hey, do this thinking, come back to me, I want to review it. And I find that very smart, especially in this process.
Yeah, it depends on the. I definitely do the thing. I know I've said this several times. I definitely do the other thing of just build me the thing and let's see what you can come up with. For all the context and all the reasons I said at the beginning of this video, this works very well for me. So it's going to take a little while. We can just have a little natter while that's happening. You can see there in the grey text that what it's thinking about, and that's really useful. I'll sometimes scan like what it's doing, but it's basically like telling me what it's thinking about, and I do enjoy reading that because it gives me confidence that it's doing something and it's doing the right things.
Yeah.
So yeah,
or you can stop it if you see that it's going off the track.
Yeah,
like
you could. Very rarely happens, to be fair.
Yeah. In Anti-Gravity, which is my IDE, they, for some reason, with the onset of Opus 4.7, you can't see the thinking anymore, or at least I can't find it anymore. Mm-hmm. And it does bother me because I used to really love collapsing, or like not collapsing, but opening up the chat window and being able to see how it's thinking. And it's really fascinating. I mean, it's a good problem.
Good problem to think through carefully before writing into the spec. Hell yeah. Because where you land on a couple of these questions changes the whole shape of what gets built. I'm not going to read all of this, but it's useful to pick out a few bits. So it's saying here, let me reflect back what I think you're after and then ask questions that, if you don't answer them now, will leave the spec fuzzy in ways that show up later as design debt. I mean, it says it all, right? Like, we know what a pain in the ass design debt and development debt can be. So this really feels like the kind of conversation I would have with a developer. Like, okay, we're nearly there, but let's talk this out a little bit more because it's going to save me loads of time and not have to undo things, right? So I'm going to scan through what I think you're describing. A new lightweight observation mode in entries view, not a log, but a third thing. Noticing grade signals, cravings, fog, neck tightness. We've talked about that. I'm getting a little bit of neck tightness at the moment, so might be on the way. Weird mood that you might catch in the gap before a migraine. Logged proactively when noticed, possibly retrospectively reviewed. Data collection only for now, no prediction. Education baked in so people understand what a pro drone is and why noticing the boring stuff matters. A lot of people just aren't aware of this. Can I give you a little anecdote about this? A little bit of research I read and why this matters is a lot of people say chocolate gives me a migraine, right? And that is known to be a migraine trigger for some people. But there's been research to suggest, or I've read some research, I don't know how extensive it is, that for some people, the craving for sweet foods and particularly chocolate, whatever is in chocolate, that is very often a prodrome symptom for people. So during their prodrome, they will have a craving of chocolate, they'll eat chocolate, then they'll get a migraine, and they will think it's the chocolate that gave them the migraine, but the chocolate was actually the signal, the craving of chocolate was the signal they were about to get a migraine. Really interesting. And so this feature would be like, okay.
So it's a correlation, but it's not causation in this case. Okay.
Yeah. So it might be, okay, let's start logging things outside of an episode, because that might tell us either what a trigger is or what's part of your prodrome or what's irrelevant. So anyway, just a little interesting nugget there.
Yeah, I would hate for chocolate to be a migraine. I'm a chocoholic.
I would hate caffeine to be a problem, because that's my my favorite thing. It's giving me some reassurance that the code base is well set up for it. It's in a good case, so that's good reassuring. I am always very mindful of any changes to my database. We will come on to this in gotchas, but database changes, if you're building a web app, database changes, easy to roll out. If you have a problem with data, like there's an issue with, if you've maybe changed the way your database is structured and the data's not migrated so well, you can fix that quite quickly. If you push a database change that gets approved by Apple, and then everyone updates your app and it breaks their data, that's not a good look. And also, you've now got to wait 3-4 days for Apple to approve the new version of your app with your new fixed data structure. So getting reassurance from Cursor that my database isn't going to have to change for this new feature, I like that. That's reassuring. So it's got a few questions for me. Questions that change the whole shape. Data model. Do I want sibling model? Third case. So I would probably ask it for its own recommendation here, because this is getting very technical. And I might say, look, can you simplify the language here? We might do that in a second. Real-time noticing versus retrospective review, which is primary? You said both invites people to review their prodrome and add things they might have noticed retrospectively, and also feeling a bit groggy and foggy in the morning, real-time. These are different products. Real-time logging is quick log this signal now. So I might suddenly be like, my neck hurts, let's log that. Or retrospectively, I might be like, oh, you know what? My neck was hurting before that migraine. Both of those are quite useful. It's good to know in the moment, but it's also good to log retrospectively. Mm-hmm. And it's calling that out as two different workflows that I would need to design for. Where on the entries tab does this live? I haven't thought about that, actually. So this is useful. It's making me think about where is it going to be in the actual user experience. The current entries page has a pretty considered visual hierarchy. If I'm honest, this would probably be a premium feature, but for the sake of this demo, I'm going to put it into a non-premium space, because in order to demo it, it gets a little bit complicated. Here's some options it's given me. A persistent call to action card at the top of the scroll. I think I'm going to go with that. That makes sense for this demo. Symptom vocabulary, brain fog, yawning, neck pain. We've already got a bunch of stuff in the database that this could map against, so that's useful. That's going to give us power to do analysis against what people are logging and the kind of stuff we would capture in prodrome. So that's really good. Mm-hmm. I think let's have a look. I'd nudge you towards the curated set. Editorially aligned with the Carmelo tone. Okay. What do you call this feature in user-facing copy? Prodrome is the clinically correct word. It's also a word most users don't know. This is very true. Most people with migraine aren't aware of this concept. So
we could either teach them or use a different word, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's given me a few suggestions here. Early signs, the lead-in, things like that. Pick a name now because it leaks into screen titles, button labels, accessibility labels, and the data model name. These are things, This is why we're being a bit methodical here. Tier 2, meaningful but you can defer with a sensible deport. Severity, intensity, linking to episodes, okay, there's quite a lot of things it's flagged here. Flagging stuff. So it's flagging a few breaking changes, there might be. I'm not too worried because we are not going to commit this change. This is just for the sake of a demo. So I'm actually going to I'm going to go into risky mode, which I wouldn't necessarily normally, but let's just see what it comes back with. What do I want for you next? You want a tight list to come back with answers to your question or not load-bearing ones. You know what? In most circumstances, I would read this in a bit more detail and I would think about the answers. I'm going to ask it for its recommendation and just say we're just going to prototype for now.
Cool.
So I'm actually building this this feature as a demo of how what my workflow is like in Cursor. So I actually trust you to make decisions on my behalf here about what's most sensible. And we're actually going to roll back these changes after I finish the demo. So don't worry too much about some of the risks you flagged. I just want to show what the build process looks like. So I've given it a transcription of that, and let's see what it says.
Yeah, so Tom was just using the voice to text tool. So while this is working, one tip. So in passing, you mentioned, sometimes if I don't understand something, I ask AI to give me an explanation. One tip, I do that as well. And I just tell it, look, I'm a non-developer. Please explain it to me in the language that I can understand. And also visualize it. I find myself that just if it visualizes the point, I just understand the concept much better. And I just ask it to use so-called ASCII graphs, which is the terminal native. So it's ASCII, and it just draws the things for me. And then I feel more confident with taking the next step.
Let's quickly do that because it's given me some decisions, but it's still being a little bit more technical than it usually is actually, and a bit more. It might be because I'm using Opus rather than another model. Sonnet might give me slightly different thing here. So I'm gonna say to it, still feel like some of the decisions you've made, I trust you on this because we're just doing a demo, but I'd like you to explain the decisions to me as a non-developer. So make the language a little bit simpler, explain to it more simply. If you need to, draw some diagrams that explain it to me using ASCII. So again, I've just transcribed. Let's see what this comes back with. I do this for the sake of this demo. I was kind of skipping, so a really good point, Alan, to point out. You kind of want to know I'm curious. I like to know what's going on. Sometimes I just trust it. And sometimes I'm like, this feels like a meaningful change. I want to understand things a little bit better. This is great, right?
I mean, and just seeing this visual just makes it so much easier for me to read this even. It does use more tokens. That's what we need to say. But it's just much higher confidence for us as users to like, this is a nice overview of what is actually going on.
So it's going to shape the data slightly differently. So this is how its data is currently stored, but it's proposing that we have a third data store basically. So the early signed data will be stored in its own entries. If that makes sense. Why this rather than something fancier? We won't go into the detail.
We could just ask you to build it also.
Yeah. Looking back versus noticing right now. So this is kind of showing me what the UI might look like. So I can choose whether what I'm recording is something I'm noticing right now or retrospectively. So did I notice my neck hurting right now, or am I telling it about the neck hurting after the migraine? And then it's showing me visually where it's going to live in the entries tab. So I'm actually going to open up the app in Simulator. So if we go to entries, these are our entries. So this is this bit here. It's suggesting that it's going to be a card at the top of the entries. That works for me. For the sake of this demo, that works for me. I would probably put it in my premium area. The invite card at the top is dismissible. Cool. The clever bit, when a migraine is just finished within the last 24 hours, the same card swaps to a slightly different version. Looking back at the last day, did anything feel a bit off before this one started? That is cool. I might genuinely use that. That's useful to do a bit of reflection. That's the moment people are most likely to remember the small stuff right after an attack while it's still fresh. Cool. Like it. There's a whole bunch of things you can tag about the early signs, chocolate included. What we're going to call it, early signs. We're not going to call it prodrone. I like that. That's more user-friendly. That fits my app a lot more. Cool. A few little small decisions. And now it's telling me what's going to change in instructions.md. So I'm happy with this spec. I would typically spend a bit longer with it. I love that suggestion to visualize the stuff you said, Alan. I think it really brought it to life as a designer for me. I feel confident in what it's done to me. So instructions MD over here, we now need to take that new feature, which we're happy with the plan of how it's going to build it, and we need to create new user stories, new features, new screens, and build steps within instructions.md. So I'm happy now. So it's saying to me, when you flip to agent mode, I'll write it straight away. So what it's going to do is it's going to start writing all of that stuff to instructions.md. Rather than do that, what I'm going to ask it to do is actually just in the chat, show us what those sections would be. Before you start writing to instructions.md, can you show me the additions you would be putting within the chat so that I can review them before you merge them into the document? So again, I've just dictated what I want to see.
Will you actually let it build this thing afterwards?
Mm-hmm.
Or
we will, yeah. And
so I think for the next, before you start writing instructions MD, can you show them additions? Oh, okay. So now you're just asking for the diffs.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to see before it starts updating instructions.md. I just want to review what it's putting together. That'll be like the final checkpoint for me of like, okay, let me read the features, read the user stories, read the screens, read the data, and then I'll say, okay, cool, let's get going.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going back to. It's kind of
where are we in the process now?
We've brain dumped the feature, and we are here, instructions.md and sanity checks. We're at points 2 and 3. So we handed our brain dump to the AI, and we were about to review what it's going to build.
And what's this in Mira, this other timeline that we have here on top?
So this is for my benefit, actually.
Oh, okay. So this is the one we
describe what needs building for AI. Okay, so good shout. Here's the fill block. So this is the new features. So let's go into user stories. So we've already got 57 user stories in our document that we've built. So the new ones are all going to have these new codes on them. So as a user, I want to log a small thing I notice, like a craving or yawning a lot, so that I have a record, even when it doesn't feel migraine related. And then based off of what I worked with AI on what this feature could be, it's created all the necessary user stories. I would go through and read those. It doesn't take long, but give them a scan. This involves a new feature, which is the early sign entry type. So we've got a few new features it's going to add. It's going to add a new entry type. It's going to add a call to action card and a post-episode review card. I discussed those with AI. I was happy with them. This is where the detail is, and this is where the devil is, and this is where we're kind of making sure we're clear about what's going to get built. So let's pick one of these, review card. What it does, a variant of the early signs call to action card that appears 24 hours after a migraine episode.
I think we could even skip that, Tom, and just go straight into building, because we're so much in detail that maybe, at least for me, like it's now getting into the stage where I'd rather just see the thing. So basically what you're saying, if I understand you correctly, is be thorough with this process when you're creating the specs, and just review this thing properly. After you're happy with it, get it built and then review, right?
Yeah. So I'm happy. I've scanned what it's designed for screens, for data, and the build steps. So these are our new build steps, and we're going to start with those. So I'm happy with that. That all looks good. So I'm going to now merge that into instructions.md. So I'm going to say, these are cool, put it into our main document. So this all looks good. You can switch to agent mode and merge these changes into instructions.md, and then we will start the build when I tell you. So
if we go back to the Mira, we are now in step 2. Right?
Yeah, we've done that, and we've actually we didn't do much revision or refinement. But what I might have done, if I'd read that and been like, actually the description of this feature isn't quite right, I would have made changes. If something seemed off with what it pulled back. So now we're in the design part of the phase.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in this instance, I'm not going to do any fresh design, because I want you to see how good the design is based off of what it already has. If I wanted to, I could use UX Pilot. I'm just going to talk while this is going. I could send the description of those screens and my existing designs and stuff to UX Pilot and see what it comes up with. I could do that. If I was building a feature that felt very, very different to anything I'd built before, or like the interaction design was going to be very different, I might go into UX Pilot first. This feels like it's going to borrow, using my instincts, a lot of existing patterns. So I'm pretty confident that it can build a version of this, a design, what's required for this without needing any generative design work done in another tool. Does that make sense?
Okay. It does. Yeah. Sometimes you just feel like it's not complicated, so it is going to do a good job with the current design components.
So what I'm expecting is once we start building, our new card is going to appear at the top of this entries here. This is where it's going to be.
So is it now writing instructions, or is it actually building the thing?
It's not building yet. What it's doing is
right.
it's merging all of this. You can see it's building out instructions.md. So it's adding everything we just agreed to instructions.md. So this is what we call like diffing. So it's showing you the previous and the new. So it's added 216 lines. It's taken out one line. So it's merged. So everything is now in the main document. It's important to have everything in the main document because then it can parse everything it's already built and it can understand the context of what's already in the app. So now we can start building. So we are not going to, like I said before, we're not going to give it design files. We're just going to start building. So our first build step for this feature, let's find the build. So I'm just searching for the build steps. There we go. So we are building. Okay. So where is it? Build step. Build step. So B076. So we're going to go build. I probably don't need to tell it to look at instructions.md, but I always do. Just a habit for me. So we're going to do this first bit, which is adding early sign case. I don't know what this means. I think this is an update to the database. So we're going to do this first. It is a database thing because it's the only thing it's referencing is data 019, which is one of the parts of the document that it's added here. Early sign entry. It needs to build that. So we're going to get it to build that. We're not going to see anything visual off the back of that because it's making database updates. So after this.
How do you review a database update?
I trust it. So when it plays back, if I wanted to, I could dig into the code and understand where it's added something to the database structure, to the schema.
Why not then build B079 and the next one? Like, what's the logic in just building the database first if I can't review it?
Because this comes down to instinct, really. You absolutely could. You could say build all these things in a row. I tend to find if it's stuff to do with data, I should have done the next one because it's data. Actually, you're right. I probably could have done the next. And what we will do is we'll do the next three because they're all to do with data. So let's do that. And then what we will do is we'll move on to building screens. So once that's finished, we will do all of these in one go because if I look at what it's doing, it's all to do with database. So we'll do all that in one go. And
the way cursor works, you could also write it now and it gets into a queue.
Yeah. You can queue them up. Okay, cool. So cursor has stopped building a few of these steps. We're not going to build everything here and we didn't want to keep you waiting while cursor worked its magic. We've got it to build enough steps that we can now show you something and see how it's going to look in the app. Be interesting to see how this looks. Like I say, I'm always pretty confident with what it can build, that it's usually pretty reliable. It looks in line with the app. So we'll have a look in a minute. We're going to start it for the first time. I'd say it took about 10 minutes, something like that. Anyway, right, let's run the app and see this new feature. So this is our Pro Drone feature that's going to be a card at the top of the entries screen. So I'm going to start building. Hopefully it builds okay. Yep, build succeeded. Good stuff. Okay, so now we're running simulator. Always takes a little while to fresh boot when you've done something new. This will probably refresh, so it will kind of almost like you imagine when you download an update for the app. That's what it's doing now. It's like doing a fresh build, installing it, and then it will just auto launch. Okay, so we're into that. Now, when I click on entries, I'm hoping we're going to see that nice card at the top of the screen. Fingers crossed. Okay, entries. Okay, nice.
There we go.
Early signs. Notice anything earlier, even small things help. Add a note. It looks like I can dismiss it. I'm not going to. If I scroll, it's there. Okay. Add a note. What did you notice? Earlier today, yesterday morning. Earlier today, chocolate craving, tight neck, irritable. Describe it in your own words so I can leave an audio thing here. We saved the early sign. Saved. Nice. We haven't built the rest of the phases, so this would probably disappear and then it would get added to our entry. But there we go. It's the first few build steps. I'd be feeling happy to proceed now at this stage.
Yeah. Super interesting. And also, I mean, just a quick comment on the visual. Did a good job in like, even though it looks like a pretty unique element for your app, but it still fits into the whole structure. Maybe it's a little bit too big for like being on the top all the time. But still, I mean, you can just close it and dismiss it, so it's not going to show up.
Yeah.
Right.
It's gone now. So yeah, if I wasn't happy with what it had done, I would now do a little bit of back and forth, go like, okay, maybe try and get all the calls to action on one stage. Maybe I'll change the copy. Maybe I would want a little introduction to that feature the first time you click it, something like that. But I would probably do a bit of back and forth in Cursor now, just going to refine it. But as a first attempt, it looks pretty solid. So there we go. That's kind of building out a feature. And we didn't give it any design reference, like you said, Alan. It inferred the design. And even though it was a unique element, it fits nicely. I wouldn't know necessarily that didn't have a hand in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that is, let's go back to here. That is our end-to-end process. We tested, we didn't tweak. I would almost certainly tweak. So we described what we needed from this feature. We did a bit of back and forth to refine it. We created the new items for instructions.md, and then we did our build after integrating those new parts into instructions.md, and then we tested. So build, test, review. This is what a session kind of really is like, right? So this is a loop that you repeat until it works. So you're telling Cursor what you want. You're being very specific. You're referencing the IDs, the build IDs. It generates or edits existing code. You can watch what it's touching while it's working. It will then play back. So once it had finished all that build in Cursor, you could see it gave me a bit of a summary of what had happened. That's interesting. I like to keep on top of that stuff. We then run it in the simulator, use the actual feature, spot what's off, spacing, behavior, all kinds of things, tone of voice, and then we refine, and then we prompt again. And then when I'm happy, we might go through that loop several times. Then once I'm happy, something like that, I would wait until I've built all of the steps for the feature and I'm happy with it, and then I would commit that to GitHub. That would be a new feature that goes in. So that's like a timestamp. That's a point in time that I can roll back to. So it says here, I might have 10 rounds of back and forth, much, much quicker than the initial build to get something like that kind of feeling solid. And that's fine. That's just how the work is. But I'm actually really happy with what came out straight out of the bat there. I'd probably be happy to ship what we just saw if I was really desperate to get that feature out. Cool. So yes, the document tells Cursor what to do. The simulator, the important bit, tells you whether it worked. So that's why I like to build and then run and test really regularly to keep on top of what's going on. But lots of iteration in between. Okay, that's our build process. Let's move on. Have you got any questions before we do that?
No, just really interesting the way you're building. So I think, again, this is useful regardless of which tool you're using. And also, I think a lot of stuff we have covered is applicable regardless of if you're building an iOS native app or a web app. This structured approach, maybe the stack is not like one-to-one. No, it's definitely not. But a lot of the logic and steps are applicable. So I really like that. Just to zoom out a little bit and to see the full picture, right? If I go back into, and if you just follow my cursor, so if I'm not mistaken, we have now also finished the part 2, right?
Yeah.
The workflow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So basically now we understand how to do these things. And what is this section, the last section about? Just remind us again.
Last section is going to be like how you actually ship an app, and a few like final bits of advice, kind of gotchas, things that for me were unknowns when I first started this process, that I'm going to save you the pain of uncovering yourself, and give you some tips to
Amazing.
Even enhance this workflow even more. And again, you already made the point, Alan. This workflow and these tips, they apply regardless of whether you're building a SaaS app that's for the web using React, or you are building an iOS app using Swift, whatever it is. I think these apply if you want something robust, commercial, reliable, and you want to build with a bit of structure and confidence. Okay, so one important part of my process, which I have added to over time, is what I call role play. So I have like a panel, an imaginary panel of experts that can look at my app, look at my code base anytime that I feel like it makes sense. So I actually ask AI to play 5 different review roles. I don't do when I use these varies. Sometimes it's right at the end of a build. But basically, I would ask AI to role play for me. So I would say, imagine you are, and it might be a senior developer, and I want you to review my code quality and tell me what we need to do. If you might be a security expert, is there any issues with privacy or data handling, things like that? The one that was really, really helpful for me was the App Store reviewer. So it's a bit of a dark art. It's a bit of a closed thing. People don't really know what happens in a review. There is a human involved, so you do get variance depending on who is reviewing your app, how they approach it, but there are certain rules that you do need to adhere to. So when I was getting my app ready to send to Apple, I asked it to imagine it was an App Store reviewer and give me some tips on things I might get rejected for. And I had to fix quite a few things. I still got rejected because it did miss some stuff, but it probably saved me a couple of rounds of rejection. And then things like...
Before you move on, I just found, I thought there might be a Claude skill or a cursor skill to use for this. So I'm just going to drop in the link because there is.
Nice.
So somebody has built an App Store review skill.
Nice.
So maybe you should test it also, Tom.
Yeah.
But this is even better than just asking a model to play the role because they don't know maybe what the latest rules are. Stuff. And I'm guessing I haven't reviewed the skill, but I guess it might do a better job than just like a role play.
Yeah. Do we want to quickly demo one of these role players or not?
Your call. Let's maybe go through all 5 first and then let's see.
So the one that I don't use that often because maybe I have too much confidence in my abilities as a designer is like what might get a new user stuck. It is useful to have someone else reviewing it, but I've tended to prefer getting it in the hands of actual people. But you could, if you're less of a designer, but you're still making an app, you might rely on this a little bit more of like, okay, how could someone come unstuck? What have I missed from a user experience perspective? And then finally, accessibility reviews, particularly with something like I'm building. I want to make sure that it's super accessible. VoiceOver's working. If someone's got VoiceOver turned on, contrast levels are good. Hit targets are easy to hit. Really, really important stuff, often overlooked, but you can ask it to be an accessibility reviewer as well. There's almost certainly skills for all these things, actually. I've been sort of freestyling.
Yeah. How do you usually invoke this or like use this? Is it you spawn a sub agent that does that, or do you open a new chat, or you just do it in the same chat that you're
I literally do it in the same chat. That's probably not the best way to do it, but I would be like, I'm about to submit this latest version of the app to the App Store. Could you let me know if there's any gotchas that might mean it would be rejected, or any updates I should make to give myself a good chance of being approved? So that's me dictating.
So before you click enter, let's do one thing which is going to improve it, which is go in the beginning of this line
Yep.
and just say spawn a sub agent in Sonnet 4.6 that does the review, and then you can just leave the rest. I think it's gonna get the point.
Cool.
And why you can do enter. So while it's doing its thing, we can chat. So why this is better is because the agent that is building for you has a path dependency, and it built this app, so it's going to see less problems with it than if you ask an agent with a clean context window to do it.
Right.
So that's why when you review, it's always better to actually spawn a sub agent that has a clear token, clear context window.
Nice.
Actually, even better one is to actually use, if you're building with Opus, to use Codex. So that's why even now Claude has an extension for Codex for the GPT models,
Right.
As a code reviewer, just because it finds more stuff. So yeah, for any of these roles, role plays, I would suggest you to use the sub agent, and specifically for the security expert and the developer, it might even make sense to use a different model.
Right. That's really good to know. I think, and there will almost certainly be good skills out there that people have built.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Review agents running. We'll come back to that. But yeah, basically, and when did I bring this panel in? It's usually by section. If I've been working for a couple of hours and I haven't had one of this panel review something, that usually gives me a slightly uncomfortable feeling. But sometimes I'll go a few days, completely honest, and then I have a lot of like, well, okay, we've done too much. The reviewers picked something up. So it does come back to, it's a vibe a little bit. I'm sure if you spoke to an actual developer, they would be like, you should do it here. So ask AI.
What you could do, Tom, just as an idea, is in your Agent MD or Claude MD, so the system prompt, you could inject like after every commit, run this skill. Nice. And then actually the skill you would build is a skill that invokes 5 sub-agents, these 5, and it just automatically happens for you every time you commit. Well, actually it would make more sense that when you say commit, it would run this before it commits and give you an review. And you can make it very visual with like some check marks and some, just make it very, visual so that you can quickly see what's going on. So that would be maybe a way to make that part of the process, to actually build it into the rules of when it's invoked automatically. That's a great skill that actually takes all 5 of these reviewers into one flow, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense. Really good improvement to workflow. This is one that kind of I only started thinking about towards the end of my build, and it wasn't very structured at the time, but I found it very, very helpful. It's taught me a lot as well. So I would definitely like to formalize it a little bit more. It's still going. So,
well, you know what's the one while it's going? What the one thing I have, or a flow I have used to test the games that we have developed? It's not a role play, but it's like a simulation. So I would ask my main agent to spawn, 10 sub-agents to use this app, assign different personas to these people. And I wanted to test the load, like can actually 10 people play the game together? Because that's what I was building, the game. I wanted to see the load. I wanted to see if the variance, would everybody pick the same answers? Would they pick different things? And I would find really interesting stuff about the variance, about the technical feasibility. And it's so cheap compared to actually launching and failing. Yeah. And it does take a lot of tokens. So sometimes I would use Haiku for these simulations, sometimes Sonnet. But the Opus is always the one synthesizing. So that's another thing that actually I haven't built an iOS app. So I don't know how it would fit into this exact flow, but maybe you can try it and tell us next time.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it would control the simulator. But I do have some checks and balances in place in the shape of unit tests, which does kind of some of what you're describing there, which I'll touch on at the end, which is something that was I knew about, but I left it kind of late to start writing or getting AI to write. So we'll come on to that.
Okay.
We'll come back to the agent. We'll see how it gets on. Really, really useful bit of the process. Good way to learn. So yeah, I mean, I feel like I've already hammered this home already, so we won't be on here too long. But I have seen videos on YouTube with the title, I built an iOS app in 30 minutes. I think that's a little bit of a fallacy. And if you have built something in 30 minutes, it's almost certainly not like ready for the App Store. You almost certainly haven't done this for the first time. It definitely won't be in the App Store in 30 minutes, maybe a few days. So yes, you could build an iOS app in 30 minutes, but for me, it would be pretty rough. It would be very, very simple and maybe not have all the checks and balances that mean that you'd be confident to build on it longer term. So don't go into building an app for Apple that's going to get approved. Assume you'll get there quickly, or even at all. You could just get absolutely rejected as well. And the bar is rising big time. Like I'm hearing, I think Apple released new review regulations. Someone posted the other day, I haven't looked into myself, that showed that you had to record a demo of how the app worked to show like your thinking behind it as well. I think they are just getting inundated with poorly coded, vibe coded apps that would just the quality in the App Store they want to try and maintain, but also making it absolutely enormous workload for their reviewers because humans are involved. So trying to filter out the crap, if that makes sense. So yeah. Let's see if that's still going. Yeah, it's still going. Okay. So, because the reality is, even if you build methodically, even if you ask your agents for advice, you still might get rejected like I did. So it's finished. Its review agent is running. Where are the fixes? Let's open that. Okay, cool. Right, we're not going to go through these, but it's got a few advisories and flags. Oh, something that will be rejected. Okay, that's something I would want to get sorted out. A flag and some advisories. So these are all things I would want to sort out. Like it's got an issue, obviously, with something to do with the microphone now. Some flagging about hard-coded elements and some advisories. So we're in good shape, but there are things I would need to fix before submitting this version of the code base. Really helpful. I'd rather know that now. Yeah.
Then waste time in the queue for the review.
So this is a screenshot of my approval timeline, my story of approval. So I first submitted to Apple on the 6th of February. And I was waiting, and I had to wait until the 10th of February for my first review. We're not going to go through all of these dates, don't worry. But that's 4 days. 4 days of just going, someone in San Francisco is going to look at this eventually. I've got no idea who, when, or what they'll make of it. And within an hour, they'd rejected it because of something wrong with my onboarding. So you can see then, right, I got on it straight away, submitted again, had to wait another 2 days. So this is why it matters. Like if you want to get in the App Store quickly, trying to mitigate all the reasons you might get rejected is really useful. So as we can see, as we go through this, I first submitted, like I say, back in February the 6th. It took until the 8th of March for my app to be ready for distribution. That's, nearly a month? How many rejections?
Yep.
One, I rejected this one because I realized there was a problem with the build. So I had to resubmit it myself. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4 rejections until it was ready for distribution. Not going to go into all the details. It was mostly things around onboarding, tone of voice, labeling of buttons, showing medical sources, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, pays to understand that stuff going into it. And then my latest version of the app, which is version 1.2 that was approved a couple of days ago, I put that into review on the 9th of May, and actually it only took a day, and they reviewed it and approved it within an hour and a half. There was quite a lot in that new version. It's always a good sign. The longer you go from in review before rejection, that means they're getting further through your app. So after like an hour, I was like, oh, it's still being reviewed. That's good. I haven't been rejected within 10 minutes. So yeah, it's because Apple will stop reviewing. I said this earlier, but just to remind you, they will stop reviewing the minute they hit an issue. So you don't know. This is part of the problem with the review process. They're not going to review your whole app and tell you all the problems. They will hit the first problem and stop reviewing. And then you fix that, you resubmit. This problem you didn't know about and they didn't know about, they now hit that. So it can take a really long time, and you don't know until you get your response. So it's frustrating waiting, but it is what it is. We can't do anything about that. Okay. Few blind spots, things that I say catch designers off guard. I'm talking about myself here. These are things that I have learned in this process that I have now got as part of my workflow. All of these are rabbit holes. You don't have to study hard, but I think this is one of those cases where it's worth asking AI to teach you about these things if you're curious. These are all things that are, I think, pretty important for the integrity of your app if you are releasing something in the App Store. Developers, this is like basics. The rest of us, it's kind of new. So I have mentioned this a couple of times, which is database migrations. So there is a database schema for my app. The database is stored on the phone. So many apps, right? Like all the data is stored on your device. That has a particular structure to it. If you change the structure of your database as you add features, there's chances that if that hasn't been approached in the right way and tested properly, that when you release a new version of your app that maybe changes your data schema, it might break the data that's already on someone's device or not be able to read the data that's on someone's device already. So they might open your app, say that they've been using my app for 3 months. They update to the latest version where I've added some new data collection. They open up their entries and they've all disappeared because I did not account for that change. So this is not my app. You can go and check yourself, but this is another app I found where it's got a 1-star review out of 2 ratings. That is not good, like as a new app in the App Store. I'd been tracking for my son, then the data disappeared. I'm on a paid membership, totally disappointed. I bought this to help as a neurodiverse individual parenting a child. I mean, there's people at the end of this, right, that rely on your apps. So take databases seriously. Because as per the story I just told you, if you realize that's a problem and you've got a web app, you can redeploy, you can roll back, like you're in control of that. If I need to fix that, number one, I've got to go into Cursor and do a load of work. Then I've got to submit it to the App Store. Then I'm waiting. I might be waiting 4 or 5 days for someone to review that new version and get it approved. This poor user has almost certainly cancelled their subscription. And this is quite a new app. Imagine if you had hundreds of users and suddenly no one can access their data for a few days. Like, you might be dead in the water if you've got like 100 1-star reviews at that point. So slow down if you are making changes to your database. Next thing, unit tests. I'd heard developers talk about these all the time. And when I was doing my review panel, as far as like how I could improve my code base, I had very poor what you'd call test coverage. And what unit tests are, they're little pieces of code that are attached to particular features. I'm really sorry, developers out there, if I'm like really oversimplifying or getting this slightly wrong, but it's basically little tests that run as you run the app, or you can like run the tests, and it will tell you whether those tests pass or fail. So it'll be like little simple bits of maths, for example. So it might be in this feature, 2 + 2 = 4. And it will run that test. And as long as 2 + 2 = 4, that test has passed, and that means that feature is still working as it should. If it runs that test and 2 + 2 now = 5, you know something is broken within your app. And you might not discover it if you were just clicking around, but because the unit tests are there, they will pick up that something has changed that has broken something. So basically, it's designing a little test, lots and lots and lots of little tests that you can then run, and it will flag whether there's a problem.
So how do you, can you develop these with AI?
Yes. So you basically ask AI to build unit tests for all your new features. Ask it to you might come to a point where you go, tell me what my test coverage is like. And I think if you're a developer, like, I don't know what good unit test coverage is like. Good unit test coverage. Don't know. As close to 100% as possible. Okay. I've worked on code bases where it's a lot less than that, I've heard developers say. But you just introduce more risk the fewer tests you've got. So it's very easy just to ask AI to write them. Ask AI to explain what unit tests are if you want, but having some test coverage just gives you more confidence that when you're building something out, it's not breaking something else. So that is a good thing to have regardless of how you're developing. So web app, whatever it is, have some test coverage. Long files, ask AI to kind of refactor, and we'll come on to that in a bit. But AI will keep appending things. Files can get very big and get hard to navigate and maintain. You can ask it to kind of go through and review the size of your files and make it a bit more streamlined, efficient, make more sense. There are debug modes where you can ask it to kind of make sure that no test data is making it into production, that there's no API keys being deployed with the code and things like that, right? There's lots of security things like that you can ask AI to flag for you and make sure you're not putting yourself at risk. And then, refactoring. AI a lot of the time will kind of be refactoring code without you asking, and sometimes that's helpful. A lot of the time it's not helpful. It's kind of like you've asked it to do one thing and it's looking over here and going, oh, that could be better. Be quite explicit about asking it when to refactor, and you can even have rules that say only refactor the code when I ask you to. But it's very good practice to ask AI, are we at a stage where we should be refactoring the code base? If we do refactor it, what would you do? What are the risks involved? Because if it's suggesting a refactor, say, on your database schema, we talked earlier about the risks there, right? If it's like, oh, actually, you know what? This database could be structured so much better. And you might go, oh, yeah, that sounds good. That sounds like a really useful thing. But if you don't understand the impact of that, you might deploy that latest version of the app and then it breaks for everyone.
Yeah, big one.
Big one. So what I did, because the latest version of my app, I had database schema changes. And so what I did was I had the existing version of the app on here with a load of entries. In test flight, I downloaded the latest build and made sure that I could open up my old entries on the new version of the app, and that when I added new entries, they were all visible, the old ones and the new ones. So I did a smoke test basically, and I got confidence then that it was working. So yeah, test.
Would you say that building a mobile app is much harder than the web app?
Yeah, I would. There's more to think about. There's when things go wrong, and you've already got a version that's out there, Apple aren't going to review your code, basically. They will do some reviews. No, that's not true. They're not going to go through it with a fine-tooth comb. And if something breaks because of an update, that's on you. And you have just got to wait until Apple are happy to review your next version. So for me, that's the biggest kind of gotcha of yes, it is harder because you have to, in order to pass Apple's approval, you need to meet certain quality levels and adhere to certain things. But then when you're updating, it's a slightly nervous thing, right? So just don't be scared. It's cool, but just be aware that this is an extra thing that you need to think about.
Yeah. So these are the gotchas, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The next thing is Manifesto. I'm really curious about this one. Yeah.
Final thing. So we've covered a lot today, but I just want you to take away these things. These are kind of my manifestos for building. So I don't think structure is anti-vibe coding. For me, it's all vibe in and structure out. I don't like doing the structured bit, so I get AI to do it. But this is not stopping me from vibing my ass off. I don't feel constrained creatively by this. I feel more confident in it. And no part of my creative process, I don't think, is compromised by the structure. It does slow things down, but in a way that I personally find really reassuring.
Man.
The brief for me is the work. So we discussed earlier the importance of putting together a good, solid brief, talking back and forth, giving lots of context is where interesting ideas come from. It's where detailed specs come from, and actually it's where novelty comes from, because you are able to explore new ways to do something rather than just saying to AI, let's try and one-shot this thing and it will build you a pretty fucking bang average. You are more likely to get creative output by spending more time on the brief. The instructions.md document, that is the spine. Everything hangs off of that. Feature screens, data, everything design. And it means you can always see what you're about to build, what you have built. And it's just such a powerful document. That was the biggest game changer for me, of going, oh, yes, this is what I need, a bit of structure.
Hey, one question on this. I noticed earlier when we were in the demo phase that in the build section of the instructions MD, you only had, it started with number 80 or something like that, 79. Does that mean that you're deleting like the builds that have already been built?
It didn't actually do what I asked it to. I didn't want to add extra steps. What I historically have done is all of those build steps would have gone on to the end of the existing build steps. It didn't do that for some reason. Didn't follow my instructions. If we'd had more time, I would have said, that's not quite right. Go in and,
But you're keeping all the old builds as well?
Always keep all the old ones, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Why?
I don't know. Just for me, for posterity, it's useful to know what's in there. I honestly don't know how useful it is for ongoing building, but just as a record of what features have been built. But also, the thing is, I guess you could delete the build steps. I wouldn't delete anything else because that's always going to be referenced.
Yeah. No, I agree.
You could probably delete the build steps. Yeah.
Maybe, but also ask AI what it thinks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Number 4, iterate 10 times.
10 times. That's fine. Iterating at the design phase, at the spec phase, at the build phase. That's the joy for me, is in the refinement and the iteration. So don't be afraid to do that. Use your panel of reviewers. It's going to tell you those blind spots. It's going to help you get approved. It's going to give you more confidence, and it's going to educate you as well. When I was first using that panel, I asked it to explain, okay, you're right, you found these security issues. Can you explain to me what this means? What does it mean when I'm committing API keys? And what are unit tests? And what is the role of a reviewer at Apple? It was a great way to learn, but also obviously now gives me a lot of safety nets when it comes to how I build. Force AI to surface uncertainty. If it's, I don't know how best to articulate that one then. If there's, sometimes I will say to AI, is there anything that we're building that actually, you know what, I don't like this one. I'm going to
No, but I think it makes sense, Tom. I think it makes sense. So the way I read it is that AI actually sometimes hides certain assumptions. So it makes assumptions and it's not completely certain, but because it's a probability machine, it just goes with the highest likelihood of what the correct answer is. But it doesn't surface those assumptions. It just seems very confident. That's why if you have heard of the way Andrej Karpathy, one of the founding members of OpenAI, he's really tweeting a lot about how he's using these tools. He has this, it's called Karpathy's Claude MD. And one of the rules that he has in his global Claude MD, the system prompt, is exactly this, always surface assumptions.
Right.
So at this point for me, it talks about that, is to actually ask AI to surface those assumptions where it's not sure, instead of just stashing them away and hoping they're going to be fine.
Definitely flagging a little bit. Thank you for jumping onto that part of the manifesto. And then number 7, AI is very good at handling the conventional stuff. So structure, code, the repeatable, reliable things that have frameworks. And this for me is everyone talks about where's the value of designers now. It's in the unsolved, the unknown, the novel, the ability to articulate. That is so powerful. And it's the bit I've always enjoyed more. Like, I've always enjoyed that bit a lot more than the actual doing. That's sometimes a problem. I like to articulate. I like to think of ideas, and it has now freed me up to get very good at that, and to get practiced at that, and to understand the best way to articulate an idea or a concept or a flavor or a possibility, and kind of work with AI to flesh it out into something new. I genuinely think if I designed Migrapulse without AI, it would be a lot more run of the mill. It would look like a whole bunch of other logging apps, and it wouldn't have as much personality. It wouldn't have the kind of novel workflow that it has. And I wouldn't have felt confident enough in my own skills to build the thing that was in my head. And so
it wouldn't exist.
Rating.
Right. It wouldn't exist because you wouldn't have the time or the money to pay developers to do it, or the knowledge to do it yourself.
Yeah. Totally. So I'm very excited by all this. And now the problem is, Alan, that I've got ideas for about 10 different apps and I haven't got the time. But
we could do another video on that, how to choose ideas.
Yeah. So that's it really. Look,
No, but the last point you had there was really interesting. Go back to this last artboard. My designer skills turned out to be more load-bearing than I expected.
So yeah, my ability to kind of ask questions, to be inquisitive and learn, like ask not just of like what we're building, but how we're building, has been incredibly helpful for me, uncovering unknowns, blind spots, and to make a better app, one that's more reliable. And my ability to think, like actually in my head, be able to visualize and then express that. I know it sounds really hand wavy, but I think we've got to a stage where we rely a lot on like components and things and existing interaction design patterns, which is great. Like, we don't want to throw a bunch of that stuff away. But what I can imagine in my head sometimes, I've been historically blocked by my ability to actually make it a thing. And so, yeah, those skills that actually, the way that apps have been built and the way that product teams have been operating for a while and where design systems have fit into our workflow, I think actually had deadened that skill set for me. And it feels like it's just growing and growing and flourishing again. I hope that makes sense. It feels very, very designer.
No, it does. It does. But also me now, having listened to you, how you did it, it just made a few things clear. One of those is that, as we said in the beginning, people start to notice when things are vibe coded. And the way they notice is not, they can't read the code, but they see the visual. And as designers, I mean, you as a designer, you definitely have that knowledge for how to actually make it feel professional, how to make it look custom-made, human-made, which is what counts. Not for all niches, but definitely for many. Secondly, I think if you really came to this part of the video, I think what has become more clear is how much more complicated vibe coding is if you want to do it properly. It's not just like, oh, now everybody's going to be a developer. I don't know. I mean, we might come to that stage where actually all of the stuff we have discussed is kind of built natively into a coding agent. But at this stage, there's still a lot of stuff you need to know how to actually do in order to get a good product, especially if you want to have a production grade app that people are paying for and you feel comfortable then paying for, so that you're not just, with one of the updates you do, you lose data or something like that.
This is why I haven't described this process as vibe coding, because I don't think it is.
Yeah.
I'd call it like building agentically. The vibe bit is very much the input, right? As I've said a few times. So, yeah. I don't know. Tell us, would you still consider this vibe coding or not?
In the comments below, right?
But yeah, it's been really interesting reflecting back on this. There are a few things that I flagged that maybe I would do differently, and I definitely think Claude Design once those token limits are off and it's got a few more features, I can see that being like a really powerful tool for me. And yeah, always learning. I'm sure the next time round I build something, I mean, you've taught me a bunch of things today that I'll use the next time I build as well. So if you're looking at this and thinking, damn, you could have saved a few weeks. Yeah, probably, but I might not have learned quite so much. So next time round, it might be a bit slicker.
No, but Tom, this was amazing. I mean, I definitely learned a lot. Now I feel like if I didn't go through this with you, I would feel like, oh, I can build an app. But I'm glad I didn't before having watched this or talked to you, because there's just a lot of stuff that probably I wouldn't do just based on how I have built web apps or automations, the backend stuff, which is just generally more forgiving.
Yeah.
Well, there's two ways to look about it, but let's just say it's more forgiving. So I definitely feel way, way more confident, and in some ways even a little bit more cautious about just building a mobile app, because it does seem to be a thing you have to take seriously. So yeah, I'm moving back into what we will learn. So right, so we covered your journey, we covered the workflow, we covered like some of the learnings in Manifesto.
Yeah.
Anything left from your side any parting words, Tom?
Well, we have the final thing I would say is like when you are ready, when you've like finished your app and you've tested it a few times and you're ready to ship it, ask AI to tell you the steps that you need to go through to actually do that, because you use App Store Connect, and we've not touched on that today. Completing all of the stuff that you have to actually send to Apple in order to launch an app does take a little while. There's quite a lot of boxes to check. There's lots of copy you need to write, descriptions, meta keywords. You have to do App Store screenshots. I would love to take you through that process maybe another time, because that's been really transformed by Claude Code for me, that whole process of my marketing site and my App Store screenshots. So I'm happy to do a follow-up to that. But ask AI what you're going to need and handhold you through, because one of the things that actually I got rejected on was some fields that I'd not filled in completely in App Store Connect. So even if your code is solid, you might have messed up when it comes to the data that Apple asks for when you submit your app. Happy to quickly show App Store Connect if you'd like, but otherwise we can save that for another video.
Your call.
Let's have a quick look.
So this is what you get when you pay $99.
Yeah, and this is where you distribute your app once it's uploaded. So within Xcode, you go to product archive. We're not going to do that now, but basically you give it a new version number, a build name, and then there's a pop-up that comes up, and basically you choose to distribute it to App Store Connect. And what that does, it takes all that code that's living locally on your machine, packages it up, and then sends it to Apple. And like we said earlier, Xcode is the only place you can do that, which is why you need Xcode. So we'll come back to that in a moment. Once you have got it into App Store Connect, it then goes in as a build. So my build is 1.2.0. So test flight is where, even before Apple has approved your build, you can start sending it to beta testers. So there's an app called Test Flight. You have to download it. Everyone you want to test your app has to download it as well. And then basically, I'm not going to show you who they are because of privacy, but I've got a bunch of beta testers and early release testers who every time I commit a new version of the app, they get a notification, they download it, and they can send me feedback, screenshots, comments, and things like that. So these are all the builds that I've uploaded. So once you submit to, still going. Once App Store Xcode is ready and you push your latest version, it shows up here as a build upload. So my latest build was on Saturday, so that's Saturday morning, something like that. So that's build number 15. So I have a load of information that I give to Apple about what's in that latest version. So yeah, and I can ask people I can tell my testers what they need to test. Mm-hmm. But then in App Store Connect, the final steps you need to do, or you can do it anytime, is you have to complete all of this stuff. And I'll be completely honest, the UX of this is not very good. So you have to create and upload all of your screenshots for iPhone and iPad if you've got iPad as well. I can't edit any of this at the moment because this is live. I would have to submit a new version if I wanted to change any of this. So I've got promo text, the description of the app, what's new in the latest version, keywords, support URL, marketing URL, version, all kinds of notes. Now, in different territories, there's all kinds of like Chinese law. I have to put something in here. The bit that I got unstuck on, honestly, this will get you. See, it says here, English UK. If you want to distribute your app globally, and I would highly recommend you do. I mean, I'm getting downloads from all over the place. It's wild. Yeah, not loads, but it's nice looking at a map and being like, oh, that's cool. You have got to complete this information for all these different territories. So some of this stuff is automatically added to the different territories. Some of it isn't, and you need to make sure that you at least copy and paste it to all of the different territories. Or what I have learned is you can actually codify that in your app so that when you build it and push it up, it automatically updates all of this for all the different territories. I wish I knew that. You can get CodeWork to do it for you if you want to let it loose on your browser. But yeah, basically the key territories, I think I like USA, Australia and somewhere else. And what I hadn't done was wherever the US one is, I don't know where it is. I hadn't selected English US and added in specific data for there because I completely missed this. I assumed that when I put all my data in here, it was good for everyone. It wasn't. And then you can see all your app review history. We're not going to go through all of that. But yeah, here you can see all the rejections and stuff. And there's a bunch of other stuff, privacy, accessibility, promo codes. But yeah, pricing, you have to complete all of this stuff before you send it to a review, because then Apple will review it all in one go. So that is, this is what it looks like in Xcode. So now it's ready. So I can now click distribute app and it would upload the latest version of the app into App Store Connect. And then that version I can either distribute to my users for test flight or I can send it straight to Apple.
So you first distribute it there and then you can decide if you make it live or just as well. Okay, makes sense.
Well, make it live. No, I submit it for approval.
Submit it for
hope
review.
that Apple will allow it to go live.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's just like the final steps. But ask AI to help you with that and to make sure you don't miss anything. But yeah, I think that's it. I don't have any. My Python shots would be Python shots. Sounds a little bit violent. My parting words would be: I know this sounds and feels like a lot compared to what you've been sold as like the vibe coding dream, and I still believe that that's got its place and is super interesting, super powerful, and a really wonderful introduction to like building. Don't be scared of the short amount of time it takes to build specs properly and to be methodical, because it will reward you with consistent progress that doesn't frustrate you and something you can be truly proud of and feel comfortable putting out into the world. So be patient, but also embrace the vibe bit of it, which is getting very good at describing what you need, very good at articulating ideas to AI and letting it help you structure that stuff. I found it such a rewarding and kind of confidence inspiring way to build. So yeah, I would love to see what people build with this workflow themselves.
Speaking of, the way I will conclude this video is just by telling that if you watch until now, you are what I would consider a maker. And for all of you, we have built a community. It's called the AI Makers Club. And what we do in there, Tom, right, is like every week on Monday, we drop in a new brief or a new challenge for you to basically learn how to use AI tools by making stuff, by building stuff. Like, hey, help me build an automation, help me build a first-person game, help me build a whatever. And through this almost play, we're basically learning how to use AI tools, how to build labs and things like that. So if you're interested, just check out the link in the description and in the first comment. That's it. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, everyone. See you in the next one, in
See
the
you.
next
Bye.
ultimate guide. Bye-bye.